Welcome, everybody. Sorry for being a little late. Coming from executive session, we ran a little late, so sorry about that. I believe we already did our statement of adequate notice. We did our roll call. Wait, actually, we should probably do a roll call again since John
Yeah,
is.
because John's on. Yeah, I'll do
Should
that
we do a
now.
roll call?
Sure. Ms. Beal?
Thanks.
Here. Ms. Gilman? Here. Sayes? Here. Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. McGovern? Here. Ms. Galanis? Here. Ms. Talerico? Here. Ms. Tortorella? Here. Mr. Weinstein?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. And let me see. So we'll go to board report first. So a couple of things. One is, I guess this is our first meeting since school started. So nice to have everybody back at school. I heard only good things about the start of school, so it was nice to hear that. Also, being at a bunch of football games, soccer games, field hockey games, and it was nice to get that good feel of a normal school year starting. So that was a cool thing to be part of. I do want to say, we had 9/11 this past Sunday, and I just wanted to, for anybody who had, it was a terrible day for us, and we got to remember that this happened, not too long ago. And for anybody who had any, personal pain and suffering that they experienced those times, my heart goes out to you, and just feel terrible about all that's happened. It still feels like yesterday to me when that occurred. So the other thing was we had the cattle car event that came to our school. And I thought it was a good event. I thought it was a good educational experience. I do want to thank a bunch of people to help kind of organize this. The people at Tarat L, Alan Winters, Dr. Stefankowitz, Dawn Kazuba, Cecilia Vila, who's our secondary supervisor of social studies, who kind of did all this in the whole last minute, trying to pull it together because school was starting, and this I didn't realize this. I realized it didn't register me is that this one cattle car is the only one in the United States that kind of rotates around. So it's only in certain areas for certain periods of time.
And Canada.
And Canada, right?
Canada.
Right. And so it's the only one, and so it's in kind of high demand. And it
We're
went
very
to Mount.
fortunate to be able to have it.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And I do want to say I was very impressed also about all the students who were interviewed by, well, first of all, how the students handled themselves when they came out of these sessions, and the questions that they asked, and the seriousness in which they kind of took it. And also the composure of a lot of the students when they were being interviewed by TV 12, and how well they kind of handled themselves. I thought that was really a nice thing to see. So I just want to thank everybody for that, and just wanted to say that. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Stefankowitz.
Well, thanks,
to take
Jeff.
the rest of it.
Thunder Stealer. So, just wanted to mention a couple of things. One, we got off to, I think, a nice start to our school year. It's a weekend, but of course, after a day, you're in, right? So a week feels like a month, feels like a year. So we're deep into the heart of it now. A lot of great enthusiasm. I think we could all agree. The end of last school year came with. Everybody was ready, right? Everybody was ready for last school year to be over, and but it was great to see, the kids come back with great enthusiasm, the staff come back with great enthusiasm, and so I think we're off to a very solid start. Just to echo what Mr. Weinstein said regarding yesterday's program. It was a very nice program, and it was a very powerful program. And I think it certainly had an impact on the kids who experienced it. We were able to shuttle a couple hundred kids through the program yesterday, and that was that was terrific. You mentioned Cecilia Villa, who's our supervisor, really did 99% of the legwork in getting this organized. It's quite an undertaking to especially this early in the year, because you're just, classes, you want to get started, you want to get on a roll. And so we're asking teachers to kind of stop what they would normally be doing and experience this. But there was not one who didn't see the value in that, right, in this experience. So it was very positive. And I also want to thank Fran Burke, who I think is on tonight, who, did a great job of securing, News 12 to come. And they, she contacted them last week and they wound up calling her at close to 7 a.m. yesterday morning saying, hi, we're coming, so Fran had to get herself together and get herself ready to go. And she was out there and she did a great job. And they did a great job with that. And so that was terrific. And it was just, and you're right, Jeff, the kids were great, the kids did a great job, in terms of their interviews. So that was terrific. So we're off and running. So it's a good thing. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in my report are just some, security question issues. We started a conversation last week about, coverage. If our class 3 officers, and when I say coverage, we're talking about armed guards. And if our class 3 officers are not able to be present at a particular school on a particular day. So we started that conversation, and then other people, I guess, had additional security questions. So we gathered those up ahead of time. And so I thought we'd take this opportunity to not just discuss the class 3 coverage possibilities, but also other security questions. We did, just for the public's sake, to know that we did go over some things in executive session, things that we didn't feel were necessarily shareable to the public, in the interest of public safety. But so we take some time going over those, right? So Mike is here, Mike Pembleton, everybody, if you know Mike. Mike is our head of security, and please do not, I told Mike 7:30, so Mike is not late. He's extremely early, and I need help. So forgive me, Mike, and forgive me. Thank you for taking my call and rushing over here as quickly as possible. Appreciate that.
Sorry,
All
Laura.
right, so Mike, is primarily here to discuss his thoughts. I know the board wanted to kind of hear from, our folks who would be doing this, and Mike knows these individuals well, and knows their capabilities, and knows, and when he and I discussed the possibility of this, and let's kind of recap, I think at the August, 16th meeting, I believe, there was a desire by the board to put together some thoughts about what would happen if we didn't have, coverage of a class 3. We're very glad to say that we do have all our class 3 officers at each of our 5 schools, as assigned by Ocean Township Police, and let me thank Mike Sorrentino for getting that done. That was fantastic. And 2 are brand new, class 3s. That doesn't mean brand new to law enforcement, just means brand new to class 3, right? So we have all coverage for all 5 days. And we already did have one situation where we did have to utilize a class 2 officer, or the class 2 officer for Ocean Township, because one was out. So that part of the plan is working. But the thought would be, okay, so if that is exhausted, what's the plan? So we came up with an option that we felt was the best option. One, and why? Why is it the best option? We felt it was the best option if we are going to have an option, right? If this is something that we decide that we want to have, then why we thought it was the best option was, one, these individuals know our schools, they know our kids, they know our staff, they're very familiar with all of it. And so there's that familiarity that, contracted people, or even people who, might be doing overtime or something like that, would not necessarily have. So that's the primary reason. And then the other reason, quite frankly, is cost. The cost to hire, an outside agency potentially to do it, or to use police officers to do overtime, is significantly more than, and not because they are of necessarily greater quality. Just that's the nature of what things cost. It could cost us potentially 5 times what this plan would cost us. Upwards of $140 an hour for some of these individuals, because it depends on, you shouldn't have, because it depends on who takes the job, and what that person's making, because it's based on their per diem salary, right? And what this is, in negotiations with Mike and his folks, we agreed upon $100 per day, as opposed to potentially, the cheapest, by the way, was estimated to be about $70 per hour. So regardless, I mean, it's just cost wise. And do we get a better quality? And I would argue, no, I don't believe we do, if we're going to go in this direction, right? So, I think maybe we tackle this issue first, since Mike's here, and we don't want to necessarily keep you, Mike, later than, because you got to be up early tomorrow to open the doors at the high school at what, 6:50 or 6:15, yes. So what specific questions might you have for Mike regarding the issue of his, yeah, please, Mike, move up. Regarding the issue, yeah, the issue of, our folks being the backup to the backup plan in terms of carrying, if the class 3 officer for that building and the class 2 officer for the town is not available to be in that day. What we have done, just so everybody knows, what we have done in the past is we just have not had coverage necessarily that day. What does tend to happen on those days is that if OTPD is able, they will send extra patrols over to the schools if they know that there's not a class officer that day, but it's not necessarily a full 7 hours of coverage, right? So, I know there were some questions about, where would weapons be stored, some of that. So we did state, last week, and we are not going to store weapons at the school. These would be each individual's, and correct me wrong, Mike, if I'm wrong, these would be each individual's private weapon that they would use. The school would not be purchasing weapons, nor would we be storing them at the school.
No.
Correct? Right.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so why don't we start with the questions? John, I see you had your hand up. Or was that a misclick?
No, I did have my hand up. Thank you very much. Everybody can hear me all right?
Sure.
Awesome. Mr. Pemlin, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate that. I do have a very specific question in regards to one of the last comments that was just made, and that is in terms of, I have 2 questions. The first question is very broad, and it's, how do you feel about this policy openly? What is your opinion? Do you think that the board is making a good decision by considering it? And then a much more specific question that I am worried about, or not worried about, but I want to make sure we're doing appropriately, is the type of holster that would be used by these officers while they are carrying in the school, to ensure that it is a holster that can't be removed without multiple points of contact, and that also it is one that would prevent a negligent discharge. Those are the 2 questions I have for you off the bat.
Okay, well, well, I'll address the holster issue first.
Yeah.
Everyone that, including me, I was gonna bring it, I should have. It's a high-rise safety holster that is designed that no one else can grab it and pull it out except the person, me, or whoever's, is able to get the weapon out. So it's literally worn this high. Okay, it's a high-rise holster, that's what it's called. And it's what I wore when I was a detective and did undercover law stuff, blah, blah, blah. So it's very easily concealed. No one ever knows you have it. And it's very difficult for anybody, almost impossible, for anyone to grab it or get it from. Okay, and that's one of the things that the tactics, you don't let anybody get that close to you anyway. So yes, they are all safety approved holsters that will be used for the weapons. The second one, how do I feel personally about it? I mean, I've been on this job now for 16 years and never have ever had an opportunity or a need for a weapon. However, God forbid, we all think about the what if. if there's not a class 3, if there's not a uniformed officer, all of our officers are 25 to 30-year police officers, retired and working in our building. We're lucky to have them. And, I think it's just an easy fix, to be quite honest with you, an easy coverage for that day. Now, the police department is very cooperative, especially with me when I call because, obviously I worked there and I was their boss, all these big shots there. I was their boss, but anyway, I don't mind twisting their arm a little bit. Tomorrow's our first day where we have this situation where we don't have a class 3 or a class 2 for the when I'm at for Wayside School. Lieutenant Calcidas called me and said he assured me he'd have one of the on-duty officers there until their class 3 gets there. They're in training in the morning for like 2 or 3 hours. And, since our security personnel there is out injured, I'll go there in the morning until the class 3 arrives and then I'll come back. So we do a pretty good job of patching everything up. But I think the plan, and it's only a plan that I guess we're batting, not even cleanup, we're batting third, only if it's needed. I think it's a decent plan. I think it will work.
Okay, thanks. Anybody have any questions? Denise?
First of all, thank you for being here.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
appreciate all the work that you do. I have 2 questions for you, Mike. First of all, training. Can you talk to us a little bit about the training that you're going to have, and also who will be responsible for any costs like ammunition or anything else that you may need?
Right now, the training that, not that we need to have, but we do have anyway, is that by federal law, a retired police officer in good standing, as long as he has an ID, as long as he has proof of his, your badge and your ID on you, you can carry a weapon anywhere in the country as long as you qualify once a year. Well, state of New Jersey is more restrictive. To have a RPO, retired police officer's permit to carry in New Jersey, you have to do the same things, but you have to qualify twice a year at an approved training center. And we all do that, we've been doing that since we retired. So, and it's the same qualification that you did when you were a police officer. So the training is very similar. The cost of the ammunition is usually, I don't know, we just pay for our own. I don't know what.
But it does bring up a good point. I think if anybody is serving in this capacity, it is something we could talk about, right? Obviously, we are all of the mind that there would hopefully never be a need to replace any of the equipment you have, right?
Yeah.
Including bullets and things like that, because they would never be used, right?
No.
But obviously, that's a conversation. That's another layer of this that we would
I
have
can tell you
to.
the cost of doing it is probably $200 a year.
Yeah.
And some of the guys that are working for us now, they go back to their old departments where they just do it for nothing. They give them the ammunition, they train with, they'll go back and qualify when the department's doing their own qualification. So what was that question?
And
You answered.
I
you
answered
answered.
them.
And the other, just to what trainings will, and we talked a little bit about this, I think, once again, that's still in discussion, but what we've talked about with, what I've talked about with Chief Sorrentino is that throughout the school year, we already do.
I'm sorry, you did have another question. What additional training? would we-
Yeah,
Yeah.
And we talked, that's where I think Dr. Stavankovich was gonna.
yeah, and I'm saying that we're still in the process of kind of working through that, right? Of exactly what we need. Throughout the school year, we always work in conjunction with OTPD, and we have in-service days, we do trainings with them. I think the nature of those trainings is probably going to change a little bit, right? So, do I think we're going to have weekly practice shooting? No, I don't think that's going to happen. I want to be very open and honest about that. I don't think that's realistic. But I think, once again, we're talking about, and Mike said something to me last week that after the last meeting, that is very profound and I think stuck with me, is that, all of his training that he ever had and the training that most police officers have is to be trained never to have to discharge their weapon. The skills that they have is to de-escalate situations and work through, and having a discharging of a weapon be the absolute last resort type of situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, that I think that's far more important because, what, and I'll speak to this because some of the questions are, can you talk about some of the strengths we have as in our security? And I will tell you without hesitation that I think our greatest strength are the people that we have working in this capacity, and not just in security, because school security, there are so many layers to it. I'm going to say it's like an onion because I like Shrek, but it is. There's so many layers. And as we said at the last meeting, if you're to the place where you need the person to utilize their weapon, that is probably, it's too late at that point, right? So when I say about our staff, I'm talking about our counseling staff and our mental health professionals that work within the schools, our people who work in our threat assessment areas, all of our teachers who are observant every day and know their kids and develop the relationships with kids so that they see when something is not right with a student, right? The security team who spends every day, the most important part of their job is to interact and talk with kids every single solitary day. They get to know these kids, and they too know when a student looks agitated, when a student doesn't necessarily look like he's having the best day. That doesn't mean he's going to haul off or anything, but it means that they understand these kids so well that they know when something might need a de-escalation, right?
Mhm.
And the culture. Another great strength is the culture of the schools. And the culture of our schools is such that the individuals within our schools feel like 80% and 80% plus of all school shooting situations, the perpetrator told someone what their intent was at some point, right? In some capacity. And so many times, what has sometimes thwarted these things that have never come to light is because people who heard this felt safe and felt that they had people to go to within the school to share what they heard and what they knew. And there's not a doubt in my mind that the culture that we have within our schools is just that. We have a hear something, see something, say something culture and culture mentality. I mean, over my time here in the district, I can't tell you how many times kids have come to us because they saw something online or they heard about something in the hallway or whatever it is. And all of those things turned out to be not credible things, but they had the confidence and faith in the adults in the building to come forward and say something. And staff does the same thing. When they hear something, they say something. And that is critical. That is the most important part of school safety, without question. And that's a big part of what we have going on in our schools.
Yeah, we work hard to develop what we used to call in law enforcement, community policing, which is, we can't be everywhere. We can't do everything. So it's the same philosophy we use in school. We get to the staff and we let them know that, anytime you hear or see or think you heard or see anything, you got to just let us know. We'll look into it. And that's really, we developed a real mutual, respect with each other. And it really seems to work really well.
Okay. Alex, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have two questions. Thank you for being here and
you're
thank you for your service to our town. I think you might have answered this already. So, because you even did say if there's not a class 3, then I am okay with this. So my question would be, if the money was not an option, would you rather have our security officers who are also awesome, or a police officer who has had recent, training on de-escalation, treating the special needs students, and just has had more recent training?
I mean, I think that's
no money
yeah,
option.
I just think that's a board decision to decide what kind of money they want to get.
Well, the only thing I will say to that is our folks deal with de-escalation. So you can get training in it and you can deal with it every day.
Yeah.
And our folks are dealing in de-escalation and working with special needs students every single solitary day.
Sure.
So, and we provide that training as well. We provide de-escalation training and all of that. So
Just feel comfortable with you.
Yeah, I mean-
And I don't want to be non-committal with it, but
Mhm.
I know that our people, that work, especially in high school, where it's obviously where I spend the large majority of my time. You know, they're really, really good at that. De-escalating, getting, you know, talking with the kids and, you know, working with that. So I would feel comfortable, totally confident in our staff.
And my second question would be, I would imagine there's rules of engagement for our class 3 in our contract with our class 3.
Yeah,
Will there be a rules of engagement document or,
I would imagine that we would develop an SOP, a standard procedure of what,
and who would do that?
well, I think I would probably.
We'd have to work with,
We will work on it.
yeah, we would work
I would
with,
have input on it, though.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I wrote a lot on the police department in my day, so I have experience in that. And, you know, the confidence that I have is that of the people that we're dealing with, that I know, all of them are 25 to 30 police officers, family men, family ladies, you know what I mean? They want to help the kids, deal with the kids. So I'm very confident in everybody that works there.
Okay, great.
And one last question, one
Sure.
last comment about training. I have been in contact with Lieutenant Delton, who's in charge of the Monmouth County, whatever they call themselves now, CERT team. And he has training for us, which is called the initial contact training, which if we do stuff like this, you know, if you decide to do it, we would have additional training for all of our staff too.
Great, thanks.
Like in the next couple months?
If it's whenever you decide, I could call.
Oh,
him
he would do
tomorrow.
it especially
I could call
for
him
us.
tonight, Yeah.
Okay, it's not like.
of course, we don't want to take them during the school day because
Yeah.
that would, of course, defeat the purpose.
Okay, John, you had your hand up?
Yeah,
Where are you, John? I'll see.
I'm here.
He's there.
The other question I have is kind of separate of this discussion, and it's more an open security discussion. So I sort of just want to pause here and make sure that it's okay for me to.
Yeah, I think those questions are gonna probably be more directed to Jim than Mike. So you can, I mean,
Well, and yeah, I mean, if you want to direct it and if we
Yeah,
want to,
if
you
you wanna
know,
direct
if
it,
Mike is
yeah.
better to answer, it, we can do that.
I think that no matter who is in position at the school to be the first line of security, whether it is a class 3 officer or one of our security guards, what is extremely important for them is that they are able to communicate to our other police officers in town who are responding to an emergency effectively and in a way that will get them to where they need to get to as fast as possible. So my question is, what are we doing in terms of communication with the department to ensure that that is the fastest and most accurate communication method possible, so that whether it be a school security guard or a class 3 officer, they are able to walk our police officers into an area as fast as they can, if that makes sense. And I'm happy to expand on that question if it doesn't make sense.
Well, obviously, the class 3 officers do have direct radio contact with the officers and police headquarters when they're arriving. And we also have on our emergency channel, we're able to talk with the desk at police headquarters, who would relay the information. We can't talk to the officers. I'm sure there's some kind of conflict that, you know, our radio communications can't go, but we do have contact. We test them on Thursdays. They'll test the police headquarters. The desk will put out a tone. They'll test our radio system. We'll respond back. We hear you loud and clear. So that's the direct contact that we would have with the police, would be on our radio through the police desk.
Right. We also, I mean, obviously, we have panic buttons in each building that if there's a situation, goes right directly to law enforcement. The other thing that is very positive is a few years ago, there was an initiative by the prosecutor's office here in Monmouth County to initiate a mapping of all school buildings. And it's sort of like a 3D mapping, so that law enforcement can see, almost see within, it's like you're standing, it's like it's almost like you're in a drone and you're hovered above the school. And this mapping allows you to know exactly what's going on in which room, what area, and what have you. You know, it's not a real-time thing. It's just, it's more like it's almost like a Google satellite shot, right? And it kind of shows you where things are, which can really cut down, if there's an emergency somewhere inside of the school, somebody's hiding in a bathroom somewhere. Well, you might not know where that is, but if you have this mapping, that can help that. The governor's office just announced that they're making monies available to ensure that all schools in the state are going to be able to get this mapping. So that is, it's not even an election year. Look at that. So I think that's a very positive thing. And so we'll look for more information on that as it comes. But that's another communication tool between ourselves and local police if in fact there's an emergency situation. And that's not only obviously for shooter situations, that's for, it could be used for medical emergencies, it could be used for a lot of different purposes.
Irene, did you have a question?
I did. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I'm happy to have worked with you all those years in the high school.
It was a pleasure.
You really did an outstanding job. So I'm one of the skeptical board members that isn't really sure that this extra layer is necessary. We have our class 3 officers, we have a class 2 officer, we have our security people. And it seems that you've been doing an excellent job of covering wherever it might be needed. My worry is the relationship between the security that now has a gun that perhaps didn't have a gun, and how the students are going to perceive that, how it might affect the relationship with them. You were talking about a high holster that would be hidden. I'm not sure, like at all times, maybe in the warmer weather, unless you've got a sport jacket on or something, the holster's going to be seen.
I was going to wear it tonight. I should have.
Pardon?
I was going to wear it tonight. I should
You're
have, so I could show you.
Listen,
Yeah.
I know and trust you implicitly,
Yeah,
but
I think those, the instance, I don't mean to cut you off, excuse me.
no, go ahead.
I think the instances of actually having to do it are going to be very, very, seldom. That you actually have to get one of us to do it. Right? That's just my own feeling.
Mhm.
But I personally don't think it's a hindrance to doing anything that we do normally, and the kids we deal with on a daily basis, I mean, they wouldn't even know we have it, It's not going to be something that, we're going to announce or that they would even notice, and especially in the winter time,
Yes,
when we wear our fleeces, you would
Right.
never know.
I could see that.
Please.
But I don't see that as an issue, to be quite honest with you,
In the high
And
school.
maybe because, it's a different perspective of how you look at it from folks like yourself and like me, that is used to wearing it all the time for most of his life, that it was never an issue, it was never, I mean, you do so many things and it was never even, it was just there. You didn't even need it, which is good. That's the way we want it to be. believe me.
Right.
I don't perceive that as being a stumbling block to, our relationship. I see the class 3s, the kids don't even think twice about them now. They're there, they're part of the, part of the building. And
I think that's a
You
great
see
point,
them in the
Mike. I
hallway
think if
talking
this
with
was,
kids.
if we hadn't had, armed guards for a while and this was a new initiative we were talking about, I think your point would be, I think, a more of a concern. But I think to Mike's, comment that having an armed person in the building right now is really part of the culture of.
yeah, it's kind of
the
sensitized
buildings.
everybody to it. What I mean? It's not.
Especially at the high school and the middle school.
Yeah,
The
especially at the
elementary
high
still
school.
is a little newer, but
Right, but how about the elementary school where Officer Joe, who is very friendly with the kids, and suddenly Officer Joe has a holster on, might that affect the elementary school students? I know at the high school, they're very used to it.
Yeah.
But I just worry about the younger students seeing the gun, being frightened by it. I
Well,
don't
like I
know.
said, we would make every effort that if, like I said, on the rare occasion that it did have to happen, which is going to be very rare, that we're carrying it, totally concealed.
Right. I mean, right now, our class 3 officers at the elementary schools do openly carry.
Yes, but don't they wear a uniform?
Yeah.
They do. Right now, though, the 2 new officers, have they got their uniform yet?
Not yet.
No,
They're-
yeah,
they're
but they're in like polo shirt
Yes.
and yeah, so.
Their uniform.
And, that states, that shows the police, but, they're not in full
In full.
uniform yet, but they will, they will.
Okay, Amy, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you, Mike.
You're
Um,
welcome.
Hi, Mike. I have 2 more logistical questions. My first one, in my world on the airplane, if we have a fam on board and we have a pilot carrying, they both obviously know that each other are carrying. So in the situation in the school, if we have one of you guys carrying, will OTPD know for the day so that,
Yeah, don't be
You know.
notifying me.
okay, right, well, so, okay, I just want to make sure, because, we have guys come in throughout the day, just to know that,
Yeah.
that someone's carrying. And then the other thing is, there's been a lot of talk about training. And I made the statement last week that I feel like you guys, which you sort of alluded to, that you guys do a lot more de-escalation and a lot more day-to-day stuff in our schools
Mhm.
than our class threes, right? So is there a specific training that class 3 officers actually have that make them qualified to be in the school that you think that you guys need in order to be able to do this?
I'll be honest with you, if we were.
Because my
armed,
feel, yeah, the
if we
reason I
were
asked, the reason.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
there's definitely programs that we probably would have our guys do if we decide to do this, One of them is the initial contact training, which
Right.
is. It's.
It's something you've been trained in for years, so it's
Correct.
not, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just to be
It would be a
refreshed, it's a
refresher.
recurrent on it.
Correct, it would be current, it would be a refresher. And we probably would just have everybody go through it, regardless if they're gonna.
Right.
Be carrying or not.
Okay,
Natalie. Oh, do you have another question? Amy?
no, I said thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Natalie, you have a question?
Hi,
Hello.
I have a comment and two questions. So my comment is, we met for the first time the other
We
day
did.
in person. And what I saw, the interaction between you and the gentleman coming in, I think you changed my mind. I think you changed me from being skeptical about this to being on board. It was the first time I got to see one of you guys in action, so to speak.
All right.
So I appreciate that.
I was nicer to you than him.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes. So my two questions is, and I think this might be, I don't know if it's for Jim or for you, but to Irene's point, is it feasible or possible that in the event that we need one of you guys to be armed, we can make an effort to have that person be at the high school or the middle school and not at the elementary schools?
You mean,
Like, can we flip?
that's a
Is that more
scheduling.
work? I don't know. I don't want to.
No, it's just a scheduling thing. You mean you'd rather have the uniform person at the grammar school or at the high
No,
school?
yes, the uniform person, because that's what they're used to, right?
Right.
And they know police, like I'm thinking more of, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they know police officers carry a gun. I think
Yeah.
most of them know
Right.
that. And then the security guards that may be more friendly with them and kind of joke around with them. If we don't want them to see them armed, can we make an effort? And I'm not saying it has to be,
We can always make an
I
effort.
think just make an
Yeah.
effort is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can move, sure, we could talk about that. I'm not convinced that, I feel very confident that
Oh, why not?
if the individuals are carrying, it would be such that our kids would not really be very aware
Okay,
of it.
and again, I don't want to make a
So, but yeah,
bigger
we
thing
can,
than it is, but just something.
as we said, we're, in certain situations, we're gonna have to move people around anyway.
Sure.
Because not everybody is necessarily, on the list to be one of these individuals.
Sure.
So in other words, if it's at a place where a person is not, then we would have to move some people around
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay, and my other question is, we've been hearing, we heard from the administration, we heard that it's rare that we will need this. And I don't know that that's the case, because as Ms. Hayes pointed out, there's actually only one class 2, right? And we're already, it's day 6 of school, and we already have one class 3. So what gives you guys the impression that?
Well, I think, rare, I would say
You said-
infrequent. I
you
would say,
said that like
last
800
year,
times.
I went back and tried to, get a sense of how many days, and we didn't have complete 100% coverage at the elementaries last year because we didn't have all 5, right? So it was
Sure.
kind of hard to do that. And we moved people around to different locations based on what we felt was prudent for a day, if something might be going on somewhere or whatever. But when we looked at the 2 places where we had it, which was the high school and the middle school pretty much all year. It was pretty much less than a week at each building, or right around a week's worth of time that those individuals missed.
Yeah.
And so And so I said, when I say that, I mean 5 to 7 actual work days, right? Not, about 5 to 7 days. So considering if the class 3 can be, or excuse me, if the class 2 can be used in hopefully some situations, let's just say cut it in half, right? So you're talking about in those 2 buildings, a total of maybe 7, 8 days for the entire year between 2 buildings. So is that rare? I don't know that I'd call it rare because we're in school 180 days and maybe that's 10, 8% of the school year, whatever it is, but it's certainly infrequent compared to the big picture of the school year.
Okay, good, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Shawanda?
It's going back to that question. What was your first, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What was your rationale for using rare or
I'm sorry.
not frequently?
What
What
was
was
my,
your rationale? What were you basing that upon?
I just thought that, there would always be class 3 for a majority of the time. If they're not there, a class 2, or me calling and saying, I need an officer to stop by and take care of it. So we would be like, way down the list as far as who would be in the chain of who would be responsible for being armed in the school. That would be it.
So even before one of our staff members, you would place a call to the chief for coverage the way you did for tomorrow, is that?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great they can provide it. It's
Yeah,
it's
they're
not
very-
all we can't
very
always count
cooperative.
on that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Not,
that's
no,
great.
they can't. Yes, you're right, Mr. Stankovich. They always can't provide it because of, it's just the staffing, issues of the day could be,
Right. I mean, they're shorthanded too.
Yeah, majority of
Just
the
in
time
terms of
they're there
regular
to help us
officers.
out,
John, I see your hands up. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. Jim, this is more directed to you. This is another open security question. So last week's discussion, or not last week, the last meeting's discussion, I think was good. I really do. Even though I know that I'm one of the ones who's more adamant about doing this, I respect that some of us don't feel that way. I hope that's clear. And I see the side of others who don't necessarily jump on with this. And there was a lot of discussion in the last meeting of, do we know that this is even going to be a good solution, right? Like, and so I asked myself that question and then tried to really look up concrete examples of either student resource officers or class 3 officers who have stopped or thwarted any type of active shooter in a school. And there are actually surprisingly a lot of examples, or not, I shouldn't say a lot. I don't think that's a fair statement. A good amount of examples. But in that research, there are 2 other things that, Jim, you've already said multiple times. A culture of reporting, number 1, is extremely important. And then the other thing that I think you've said to me multiple times is the issue with doors remaining ajar, right? I think those are 2 things that even more than having an armed officer in the schools may be important. And so we've touched on the culture of reporting tonight. The other question that I want to know how we can support the administration more in is what can we do to not just have a discussion of preventing the doors from being ajar. Is there, sorry, hearing.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, right. Well, he has a list of those questions, and so he would, after we were.
Well,
kind of-
and
I
it's-
think we were
I
gonna
can
go
pause
with
it.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I can pause.
I think we want to make sure Mike doesn't get caught up too much in.
Yeah,
open
exactly.
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Want me to answer that?
So John, Mike,
I can answer that for you if you want me to.
No, I mean, we're gonna go over that. We're gonna go over
yeah,
that.
I'm gonna go with it, yeah.
Okay, yep, no problem. But so to just clarify that question, it is, a system that could be in place to prevent doors from being ajar, or notification so the security guards can know that doors are ajar, and not just hey, we tell the teachers at every meeting that they need to take care of it. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is how can we ensure that we have some sort of concrete system in place, that there's some sort of notification or alarm when a door has been left ajar for too long of a time period.
Yeah, I mean,
John, I can just tell you
we don't have that. We don't have that system, right?
we don't have alarms, no.
No,
But I can
but
tell you that routinely.
yeah, there's constant checking of the doors.
When we are through the buildings, checking doors, checking
Right.
everything. We
You know,
know what ones are kind of like.
the
ones we
biggest-
Keep an eye on,
Yeah,
and we constantly close,
Yeah.
and make sure they're
Can
closed.
you tell us a little bit about, like, is there a routine on how you do that? Is it
No, it's just a routine patrol thing. It's like how many times do you ride through a neighborhood whenever you can, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If we're not busy, we're checking, you know? We have a guy that works
I was gonna
outside.
say, the guy drives around, was
He
driving
drives
around
around the
today.
outside. He checks from the outside. When we're walking, doing our normal routine, it's part of the things that you look at.
But we don't have an alarm system like what
No,
John
we
was
don't have one.
saying.
No, there's
but
no
there-
alarm
And
system.
John's saying, I mean, we could buy one or whatever. I think
Well,
that's what
let's
John's
get something to look at,
Something to look at.
right?
Something to look
But at this point, and what we try to do, and obviously remember, at the high school, there's more people, right? So fewer people at the elementary level and even at the middle school level. But, you know, the administration engages in this as well, which is a constant checking, particularly during, say, you know, when we know phys ed classes are coming in, when people have been outside, right? Because the biggest problem is, from my perspective, is sometimes you have a situation where doors, if not seen to close or pulled closed by the people who are coming in, may not, because of a variety of circumstances, fully shut and lock,
Mm.
right? Just because, could be because of weather, it could be because of a lot of, what's that?
I said napkins stuffed in.
Napkins stuffed in them, yes. I mean, obviously, that's a major no-no, right? And we talk about that all the time, about propping open doors. But that is key, right? So going around and securing your perimeters is really, really important, particularly, I mean, at all schools, but particularly at the elementary level, because at the elementary level, if you're talking about the most extreme threat to a school, the elementary threat is an external threat 99.9% of the time. It's an external threat. It's coming from outside, right? At the high school, secondary level, it's more likely to be an internal threat, statistically. So, you know, it's a different approach depending on the level, right? And who the people trying to do damage are at those levels, right? So, but there's a general checking of those doors all the time. But, you know, we can certainly look into, you know, beeping systems or those kind of things that if left ajar.
Okay, and
I just have one quick question. So extra duty solutions, did you ever use that when you were on the force? It's like it's like the app that
No, I
OTPD
know what it
uses
is,
for
yeah.
overtime. Oh, okay. So when you say, when we're going through if this guy's not available, then we're gonna see about that guy, and then we're gonna see. So do you know if the chief puts any of this on extra duty solutions and asks for?
I don't know the answer to that. That would be, what extra duty solutions is that any type of extra duties that they perform, instead of, you know, doing it in-house, they have a company that does it now. So that's what that is. And I don't know the answer to that. That's really probably something I think the chief needs to answer. You know, he probably is coming.
So when you said like, well, we would ask Chief Sorrentino if maybe he has somebody that he could bring over here, that would only be like the
On duty.
existing guys,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
women that are
Yes.
out in the field. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I just want to make sure folks know that it's
Correct.
not like we're asking them for overtime.
No, they would
But
send
we
an extra
could,
guy.
but you're saying it's,
Well, it's very
Rather
cost
expensive.
prohibitive. I mean,
Yeah.
we certainly could, but it's cost prohibitive. I mean, one thing that we have to understand right now, we did not budget fully for the 5 class officers we have. Because we didn't have 5 class officers when we did the budget, right? So we're gonna have to find the money to make sure we have, to pay for the 5 class officers, which we will. But any additional cost beyond that, like $140 an hour for a backup to the backup, makes things more difficult.
perhaps this can be something for Chief Sorrentino, but I was told by an OTPD officer that it's $100 an hour and that they don't charge for the admin, which is $30 an hour, so that it's really only $70 an hour. So maybe we could get clarification on
The
that.
numbers I got were from chief that said somewhere between $70 and $140, right? That most being 140, least being 70. So,
Or we pay
On-
50% of that person.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it
and we
would
would
be
pay 50%.
$35 if it was a $70.
Right, but we're paying
Right.
16 now.
I think the
Give it
additional
35%.
cost, like between 70 and 100, is that if it's a company, like
Yeah,
they're doing
like
road
a
job,
utility
they
they get
pay
the
for the
extra.
use of the car.
Yep.
Also.
and the
So-
administrative city fee, yeah.
Well, Mike, thanks for coming.
No, you're
I do,
welcome.
just so I just want to remind everybody that the way we kind of got here was that we had a strategic direction that we wanted to have an armed officer in each one of the buildings. And we were discussing how to fill that. We were basically talking through like what happens if those gaps occur where there isn't somebody there. And we were trying to make sure that we had a method to do that. We asked Dr. Stankiewicz to come up with a plan that he felt comfortable with. I'm assuming that, I know that he talked to Mike. I know that you talked to the principals. You had a conversation with the Teachers Association. We kind of went through all those things. So one thing we can discuss later on when we get to the discussion topic around this, we can discuss if we want to take next steps, if we want to have the chief come in, do we feel like we have enough information? We can discuss all those things at that time. But I want to say, Mike, you coming in and kind of, and I'm not kind of, but specifically kind of, giving your opinion about, and thoughts about how you feel comfortable with this and articulating how you go about it and just feeling comfortable that your team is in a good mindset for this and feels good about it, I think was a great thing for us to hear.
Okay.
And I do want to say, I appreciate you kind of fielding everybody's questions
problem.
as well.
Anytime.
Sean,
I
did you have
just have one
something?
other question. You mentioned you were going to fill in tomorrow morning. Are you one of the options as well?
I'm just a security option right tomorrow, not an armed option.
Okay.
In other words, our security.
But he is on the list.
But
He is on the
Yeah, I'm on the list, but
If-
not
if you
not
go
for
in
that.
that
I'm just going there because we
He's
have
in-
no security.
Yeah,
station.
I think those are two separate things.
Yeah,
but
two
not-
totally two separate.
Okay, you're
Correct.
just going there.
Yes,
just
yes.
Because.
Mike, if you want to go home and take a
But
selfie
Mike,
of yourself.
Mike, I
with the,
appreciate you coming in and taking the time. And by the way, thanks for, I always appreciate when I see you at every sporting event that I'm at. I feel like I know I'm at least when I first walk in, I know I'm at the right sporting event. First of all, so it makes me really feel good, right? So thanks a lot.
Right.
Good night.
Mike, it's easy for Mike to see over the crowd. So.
Okay.
Okay, so that was that, and I have the rest of the questions if we want to.
Yep, why don't we do that? Yep.
Well, obviously, I'll try to answer these as, succinctly as, I'm sorry?
Does she have those?
She does. She's, Mary Ann, you can put the questions up, right?
Okay.
Okay. So, we'll just kind of go through and I'm gonna, there's a number of them, so I'm gonna answer them as succinctly as I possibly can, but obviously if anybody has any questions, to follow up. So I kind of, the first one, we basically, that's what we've been talking about, right? So the second plan, so we've kind of addressed that. I talked about what I think our greatest strengths are, and just to reiterate, I think our personnel and our culture of reporting is very strong. Challenges, I think, I mean, obviously, there's all kinds of challenges, but I think one of the greatest challenges we face right now are staffing is definitely, we talked a little bit about that and the fact that, there is now a greater demand for security personnel in schools. And so it's when we have an opening, as we have right now, it is difficult to find people and people apply for the jobs, but what they can make in private industry is often much greater than what can be paid in the school. So something definitely look at moving forward. What can the board do? Well, these are going to be discussions as we get to budget time about things we might have to do in terms of salary for security and other officials within the school. But that's probably the greatest challenge, right? I would say another challenge is complacency is probably not the best word, because I don't think anybody is of the mindset that this can't happen here. I think that's long gone, right? But I think making sure that everybody follows the procedures consistently that need to be followed, right? And it's not out of lack of desire or whatever. It's just that, on a daily basis, making sure that door shuts behind you, making sure that, you're keeping your doors in your classrooms back locked to where if there's a lockdown right away, you can shut that door and it's locked easily and quickly. I mean, there's never a perfect, there's never a perfect plan, right? There's 1,000 what ifs. The idea is to try to just be as well prepared as you possibly can. But following the procedures and being up on the procedures and making sure, because look, we all know that there's a big difference between a drill and a real situation, right? A drill can go perfectly. And until you're in a real situation, you never know how you're going to react. But the more you prepare, hopefully when you get into that real situation, the more, you'll react the way you were trained to react, right? So that's always a challenge too, right? And that's always a challenge too. But overall, and resources. I think resources are probably the biggest challenge. We talk to hear about a lot of things about, alarms that go off if the door's not closed, or, this kind of shade and that kind of this, and all the many different equipment. We've talked about it a lot. And it's all great. It's all great, right? But it's all expensive. So you need and it adds up. So it's hard to do everything, and you need to prioritize what resources you do have and what products you purchase are going to give you the most secure environment. Right. I go to a lot of trainings and I talk to a lot of people, and there's a lot of different pieces of equipment that sound great, but at the end of the day, don't really give you a lot for the money. And so I think we have to weed through that and really focus on the things that do give us sound protection for the money we spend. Right. So I think that addresses that. I highly recommend, the administration increases dynamic rehearsals of active school shooter drills and various situations. So we do that. We do have various scenarios. We pull things during change, we pull alarms during change of classes. We pull it during cafeteria, lunch. We pull them at various times. There's a lot of question about fire alarms. I mean, at our last meeting with Office of Emergency Management, there was in-depth discussion about who would need to shut off the fire alarm if we pulled it, and the fire department coming, and all kinds of interesting conversations about that. Heated arguments between fire officials. It's always good to see. But we do many different scenarios to ensure that we're as prepared as possible when we can. One thing, though, to remember is that now new law prohibits us from doing drills the way we have done them in the past, which is with law enforcement, with staff present. We really typically have not done active shooter drills with, when I say active shooter drills, I mean with police simulating a real active situation with, a perpetrator being taken out, the whole thing. We used to do them every year. We are no longer able to do them as per the law. But that doesn't mean that OTPD doesn't, what we do now are tabletop. So we talk through those situations. We don't carry them out in actual drill, but we talk through them. And OTPD, though, runs drills minus, any school personnel, present. So
In our
they-
buildings.
They have in the past done them on weekends or nights
Yeah.
in buildings, yes, and they let us know when they're going to do that. So they've done that in the past. But and part of the rationale behind all this is that there is research that speaks to that, some of these drills can be difficult for particularly kids and younger kids. And have had very negative impacts, and actually works to create what you don't want to do in your security is create an environment where there's a fine line between enough security and too much security, right? Too much security can lead to a mindset that it's an unsafe environment, particularly for young people. Right. So you want to avoid that, obviously. You don't want kids to be afraid to come to school because they think it's an unsafe place to be. But at the same time, you want to be able to have enough security to where it is a safe environment in case. And one thing to remember, as more frequent as they've become, they are still rare situations. School shooting situations, right? So we don't want to create this feeling for kids that it's inevitable, right? But we certainly don't want to create an environment where, like I said, there's a feeling like it can't happen here. So we want to be prepared, but also not live in a place where, it's that our schools look like a prison, right? Which could lead me to one other question that kind of came up about metal detectors and bag checks. I don't know if you were going to ask a question. I'm sorry, Jeff.
I was just going to go back to the buying of products because it makes people feel better. I think that just kind of remembering my door in the English department, how it would stick in the humidity
Mhm.
and not always close. And I think that an easy fix, a strength would be to have our staff do a walkthrough and just check all of the doors and windows and make sure that they are in working order, out exterior doors, interior
Absolutely.
doors. That's an easy fix without spending a ton of money on a product
Yeah.
that may not work. And again, I'm just to follow up to what you said, I'm glad they're not doing those drills with students around because it amps up the anxiety level tremendously. And again, that fine
Well,
line
staff as
between
well, staff as well.
Staff too.
Yeah,
really hiding in the corner
yeah.
of the room with 20 other teenagers was very stressful for me. And I'm glad they're conducting those drills minus the staff and students. Yes, we want them to feel that it's a safe place, but again, that was my comment about children seeing guns in a place that they think is supposed to be safe.
Right.
That's my comment. Thank you.
Let me let John ask a question.
Okay, yeah.
And then after that, I think we might take a pause and just have go to busing so that
Oh, okay.
she doesn't have to stay too long here. I've kind of misread that.
I'm
So
sorry.
John, do you want to ask a question or?
Yeah, I just, with the fact that OTPD is now conducting these drills without staff and students present, do we know when the last time was that they conducted one of these drills?
I'd have to check. I don't recall the last time they've done it, because once again, COVID did impact a lot of this stuff too. So it's been, tabletops happen all the time. We just did a major one this summer with Office of Emergency Management. And they happen every year, but an actual one in one of our buildings, I'd have to double check with Chief as to when the last time that was done.
Okay, so if it's okay with everybody, I'm gonna take a timeout from here. I'm gonna let Ms. Truba talk about busing,
Mhm.
okay? Is that all right for everybody? Okay.
So I just wanted to
Yeah.
talk about my BA report. And, the one thing I did want to do is, this has been my first school opening since I've been here as a business administrator. And I have to say how proud I am of the back office team between IT, facilities, and transportation about all the hard work and diligence that they put in to make sure that the opening went very well this year. I have to say, one of the things that Ken advised me on was transportation and what could potentially happen the first couple of weeks of school. And I think Maria Mosca, who's here with her team, did an outstanding job working with the administration, making sure that communications went out to everybody, that people understood that, look, it's not going to be perfect the first couple of weeks, but every day we're getting better and better. I have been asking for reports because the last buses to come in are the babies. So, preschool gets out at 3:30. Initially, the kids weren't getting home till almost 5 o'clock. We're down to like 4:20. So that's pretty good considering they get out by 3:30, and we're going to continue to make it better and better. So I wanted Maria to be here in case the board had any questions, because I'm not the subject matter expert on this. She is. And I didn't know if you got any, questions that you wanted to ask.
Natalie, did you want to ask a
I have a
question?
comment, a compliment. Night and day from last year, it was fantastic. We missed the bus on the first day because you guys were on time. You were not this year. Yes, so you were on time. So we were late. Yeah, I called. I was like, "Wait, did I miss it?" She said, "Yeah, you did." So yes, thank you. Awesome job, all around.
I think, obviously we learned a lot from last year, right? I mean, last year, by moving the preschool time to 3:30 and we that obviously, we recognize that the worst thing any parent feels is when they don't know where their child is, right? When they expect them at 4 o'clock and it's 10:05 and you haven't heard anything, right? So that's the worst feeling in the world. So we learned a lot from that, and we knew that we were still going to have late buses. We knew that, but I think we stressed with everyone. And I will also say, the transfer to Genesis, and I think you brought this up last time, did add to the challenges that you guys had, and you did really great with it. Yeah, no, I mean, it really did, but it was great. But I think the communication that we put out early and often, the principals, the transportation department, everybody involved about when buses were leaving, how late they were. I think it would be a rare situation that, okay, if I'm a parent who knows, okay, my child's late, but I know the bus just left 15 minutes ago, I'm okay, right? I'm okay. And I'll tell you, when the kids are waiting at the school for the buses to come, they're having a blast. I mean, I will tell you, because I was over there a couple of times and, they're great. They're fine, but it's the parents on the other end who are worried, right? Because it's, especially the first couple of days. But I will tell you, I think you guys got it down quicker this year than, the past couple of years. So it's great.
Irene, do you have one last question?
I do for Maria. We received a notification that there was an accident on Cindy Lane with one of our.
First day.
Yeah.
First day was great.
My concern is that, sometimes I see some speeding buses around town. As a matter of fact, I was at.
Those damn Seaman Tove buses.
35 and Deal, and the driver went through a more red light than yellow. Yeah, and I'm just concerned that they're trying to make up time or make it to their next run. Or, why was there isn't this the second time? we have an accident on Cindy Lane?
One thing I would say is that in our training, in the training we do, in the message we deliver to our transportation staff is always safety over speed. Always, right?
Sure.
And, but
Irene, that was in Cindy Lane. It was in the apartments.
Okay,
She's a great driver. She's great with the kids. She was totally up. She was looking for the number of the building. That driver was backing out. I can't tell you how it happened. She was backing out. She didn't see her backing out. She looked at the number they had.
Yeah.
so I know, it was just.
So
a
if you
little
see,
thing.
now thank God we got GPX, 'cause I see where the buses are, so, and I see if they're speeding. You know what I mean?
you're like Santa Claus.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I got a lot of Christmas presents.
The other
this year.
thing, I mean, what we
if
did
you're
was last year,
speeding.
we invested in safety videos. So now every month, the drivers and not only the drivers, the aides, they're going to partake in an hour safety training every single month. And there's other districts that are getting involved and wanting to come because we purchased this library to help. So we're 100% in agreement that safety is the most important thing that we need to do.
That's great.
And I tell them, I don't.
I know we are
No,
gonna
we are
charge
trying
you.
for that. We are, yeah.
You're late, you're late. I'd rather be sick.
Yeah.
Don't worry about rushing. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So please, if you see anybody go, grab the number of that bus, they go through red lights or speeding, please.
Well, and it's funny because Mr. Amato would send out his tweets every day. So the first day I think was 14 minutes and then it went to 8 minutes and then it went to 4 minutes and then it was, we got them all out on time today. So that's great. It's good stuff.
Oh, the drivers are still like, why are we still sitting here? So
Yeah, they don't want to wait for those
the
kids.
last
waiting up.
bus tonight was 4:30 for the preschool, so
Yeah.
that was a lot.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Last year, 3 days after school.
It's a
That's
long day
great.
for the little ones.
That's good. Well, congratulations on starting this the
Thank you
year. Well,
very
thank you.
much.
Thanks for all you do.
This
Really appreciate
transportation
it.
supervisor, I'm glad that.
Gotta be up in
Because you get up
gotta be
at
up in
4:30.
3 hours.
You're at work by 4:30.
You gotta be up in 3 hours.
So, Tina, is it okay if we go back to the?
That was my BA report.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Maria.
Okay,
Back to security.
Marion, can you share that? Thanks, Marion. Okay, back to security.
All right, so I think we're down to the, Ken, Board of Ed members know in advance. So just question. Is it the police alone training that you're talking about or what specific?
Yeah. Yeah, like, for example, when you said the PD will.
Yeah, when they come in, I mean,
on their own.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. They typically do it on the weekends, sometimes even in the evening. Sometimes we're not even present. We know that they're doing it. Obviously, they ask for our permission to do it. I mean, I can find out.
Yeah, I just feel like when we're driving by the high school or wherever it is and there's 82
Yeah.
EMSs and.
Certainly, can
police
you
cars.
know? Yes. Can you be there? I don't know about that.
Two separate
And
questions, but
would
yeah.
our
But at
PR
least
person
know.
be on site? Probably not. So.
Okay.
Okay, we talked about that, all doors, fixed, so, I mean, once again, I think that just check this, right, so for what I've been told, all doors, and I know this says Dow reports, there were never any, I double checked with Mr. Pusnick again the other day, there were never any, doors that were not operating at Dow Avenue. I think there were a couple questions that came up at Wanamasa. And it stemmed from, and I addressed this, sometimes certain weather times of the year, you get expansions of the frames and things and they may not shut all the way if you don't watch it shut. You got to make sure that it shuts. So obviously we put those things into to our maintenance staff to try to address those situations. There is a door in the new wing of Wanamasa that is broken, but it's not open. It's locked, right? So you can't open it. It's of
So
the
three pane,
stretch of doors,
three
it's
different, yeah.
one that's on the side, right? So it's not operational, but it's not open, right? It's
And there's
not
other doors
unlocked.
next to it. in
There's
case
two
one
And there's
of
many
doors
other
next to
doors
it.
next to it that do operate well. So to my knowledge, at this time, all of our doors are operating. But I do want to stress, and I know Mr. McCarthy kind of mentioned this, it's not what we rely on. But certainly, anytime someone comes in a door, they should absolutely take the extra 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds to ensure that that door is pulled shut and secure.
Sure.
Yeah,
And that's my question. Is there signage on every door in the district that basically says, please keep doors shut?
I don't
That's easy.
I don't believe we have that signage on every
Maybe,
door, no,
you know,
I mean,
Could be a good reminder to just place signage on every door.
Cheap
It's
fix.
a cheap
Yeah.
reminder.
we will,
Okay.
please pull door shut
Or
is what I would do.
whatever.
Please make sure doors are secure, yeah, I mean, and that's,
I was just gonna say-
are you gonna do that?
No.
Oh,
With that comment, I remember when we were having the problem with the students leaving it open, that I remember, or seem to think that I remember, that an email went out also just to, especially at the high school, just to say, please make sure that you're not holding doors for kids,
Yeah.
just as the reminder, maybe as the back to school.
And don't open doors for people from the outside. 'cause you
Correct,
never know.
but there was, I think we.
Yeah, I mean, these are constant
Yeah.
reminders that are put out, the principals are always constantly reminding people and, I mean, but that's, when there is a problem, it is typically because of some type of malfunction. And those do happen from time to time and we've talked about those when they've happened. And when we're made aware of them, we work to correct them, right? But it is really important to make sure the door is closed.
I think it was a great suggestion. He needs to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll look at it. Okay. We addressed that question. Do we have drug detection devices in our student bathrooms? If the kids are listening, yes. The real answer is drug detection, no. Vape detection, yes. So there's a difference, right? So you can detect the vape. This is at the high school, by the way. So you can detect the vape. What is contained within the vape is not detected. However, if we have other methods to determine if illegal substances are being used, yes.
They do sell those like machines, that do detect marijuana and some even detect vapes. Is that something we might consider?
Well, we do have the vape. We have the vape in the bathroom. So it detects the vape.
You just said the machine, not the substance.
No, it detects, if there's vape in the air.
Okay,
It will
I thought you said
detect-
it was the
No, no, it
machine.
will-
I was like, how are they gonna
It
tell
will
us?
detect the vape.
Yep, okay,
No, it won't tell us what is
It
in
is,
the
right.
In the
vape.
vape.
Yes, yes.
that's what you mean,
We
okay.
have other more
But it does not
devious
detect
and
marijuana.
diabolical methods to find out what that is. Okay.
We try.
Okay, the pickup location. So we in conjunction with our emergency plans that we have with our town, there are designated reunification locations. It depends on the incident and it depends on, it depends on the incident and the scale of the incident. Obviously, there may be a need for a different reunification or pickup location that has nothing to do with an active shooter or that type of situation. I think that's where you often hear about those kinds of things. But you could have, a gas leak or some type of situation in one school. Now, all of our schools have evacuations, emergency evacuation sites that they go to, which we practice every year, right? But in a worst case scenario, the unification sites that are designated are the recreation center across from the intermediate school is one. But obviously, if there's an event at the intermediate school, that would probably not be utilized, right? I don't believe that it's 100% secure at this time, but it's my understanding that the tennis facility is also over across from the high school is also possibility. And then the third is I think it's Boylan Gym. It's not the main gym. It's the secondary gym at Monmouth University. So if we had, God forbid, a horrific incident in our district, more than likely that would be the sites used, because obviously perimeters and things are established, for many, many blocks around, sites, right? So you really move away from things as much as possible. So those are the primary sites, but obviously those are command decisions that if we're in a situation where we have to form a command central, then, a lot of those decisions are no longer school district's decisions, they're command decisions that are primarily going to be taken over by law enforcement and obviously in conjunction with us. But that's where those decisions would be made.
Great.
All right, and that kind of leads us to the next one about the crisis communication plan. There's not necessarily our communication plan is located within our overall. It's not a separate plan necessarily. It's within the overall emergency plans and the OEM plans, right? So once again, depends on the incident. If it's a school based only incident that doesn't involve law enforcement in a significant capacity, like, a norovirus outbreak, for example, or something like that. We deal with those things internally and we work with, through our typical means. If we're talking about something where law enforcement now kind of takes over the command of that, then that communication is coming through the command center.
The question was, can a board member give community? That was the question.
Oh, well,
Just want to make sure you got the.
I try to answer thorough, right? I try to anticipate
Okay.
follow-up
Okay.
questions. We don't, any of our plans to this nature, we don't really like to put out there. So if a board member would like to see any of our plans, we can have them available here in my office. And if you'd like to come see it, you can make time to come see it.
Okay.
And some of this stuff is with the town. And we have copies, obviously, but it's with the town. That you have, you talk to OT, we could ask Chief about that.
Yeah, I think,
Right?
I think.
Okay, next page, just a couple more just on the back. Okay, so who at the school gets copies? Typically, the building administration would get copies of those. And obviously, we get them here if we need them, but that's the building administration typically. How do we ensure all PTAs hire police for large events? Put it in the policy. I mean, I don't think it's in policy right now. I think obviously many of them try to do that, but I mean, there was a lot more to this question, but some of it was more, there were a lot of questions here, but I mean, really what it comes down to is if I think up to this point, that's been their decision to kind of decide if they want to have security in whatever capacity, whether that's armed security or just somebody to watch the door, whatever that may be. So I have a PTA president's meeting coming up, I think in a week, and so I'll talk to them about that and get their sense of what they're feeling about that. District security meeting, the next one, we don't have a set date. We usually have one around beginning of November. We may have one earlier this year because once again, our big initiative will be the self audits that we have to do for security in each building. This fall we're looking to do. So, you know, parents, how I usually go about doing that is I speak with the PTA presidents and ask them for usually folks that are engaged with the PTA to volunteer. I do have someone at the high school level that I've already spoken with. You know, we usually have, what we'd like to do is have someone who represents each level, not necessarily each school, but each level. So an elementary person, middle school person, high school person. And so I've got a high school person, so we can, you know, I'll put that out to the PTA presidents and go from there. I think we addressed some of these. The next one, I think we addressed when Mike was here, and I think the last question deals with metal detectors and random bag inspections as they currently do at Asbury Park. I believe Asbury Park High School, I could be wrong about this, it's the only high school, and certainly in the county, that has metal detectors. They would not be a way that we would go. Believe it or not, probably create more problems than it solves. To do it right, you would have to increase our security staff to be able to, you know, see what goes through, to keeps lines moving. It causes great bunch ups, and quite frankly, they're not horribly reliable. There are many ways around metal detectors. Same thing with random bag checks. I mean, same thing. They're not surefire ways of securing anything, really. Once again, sometimes those are more, you know, make us feel better items than they're actually effective, right? So,
Okay.
okay.
I think.
So that's what we got.
That was a list of the questions.
That's what we got.
John, I will call you to discuss some of the other questions and how they were answered. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, Jim, thanks for putting that together.
No problem.
And thanks for taking the time on this, and thanks for having Mike coming in.
Yep.
I really appreciate it. Had some good clarity to everything.
Good.
Yes, let me read the thing here. Okay. Motions are posted on the district website at this point of the meeting. We will now conduct the first of two public comment sessions. The first session will be open for the public comment on agenda items only. The second will be at the end of the meeting, can be on any topic. There's no one in the crowd right now that has any questions. So Marianne, anybody online have any questions on any agenda topic this time?
Good evening, President Weinstein. There are no commenters.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Ms. Gilman, could you do the approval of minutes?
Certainly.
Certainly.
Move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with Board of Education bylaws 0168, recording of board meetings, our work meeting and executive session minutes from August 30th, 2022. And 7.2. Move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with Board of Ed bylaws 0168, recording of board meeting from our regular meeting minutes, August 30th, 2022. Are there any comments or questions?
Can we get a second?
Second.
Thanks. Any questions? Can't see if John has anything to say.
He does not.
John's good. He left it.
All right. Okay, I think we can do all in favor, right?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any
Right.
abstention?
I wasn't here.
So I have one abstention. Everybody else is in favor. Motion carries.
Great. Natalie, can you do financial management and resource services?
Yep, excuse me, 12 items this evening. Item 8.1, move to approve the 2022-23 stabilization aid and education risk grant application in the amount of $2,378,950. Please see attached letter to the commissioner dated 9/12/22 and a summary of the justification for one-time purposes. 9.2, move to approve the following resolution, which certifies that budget balances at the end of August 2022 were adequate to pay all remaining obligations of the 22-23 school year, and then account groupings required by the state have adequate balances. The board is also certifying that the independent reports of the treasurer and the business office are in agreement. 8.3, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the sale of surplus property no longer needed for public use through GovDeals online auctioning. Surplus property to be sold will include retired buses, maintenance and grounds vehicles and equipment, and outdated technology equipment. This surplus property shall be sold in an as-is condition without express or implied warranties. The board reserves the right to accept or reject any bid submitted. Please check the website, oceanschools.org, for details on availability. 8.4, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the preschool agreement with the Accelero Learning Monmouth and Middlesex County, Inc. for 2022-23 school year in accordance with the attached contract. 8.5, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the below resolution to submit a request for proposal for payroll services as stated below. 8.6, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a transportation jointure agreement with Monmouth Regional Board of Ed. The Township of Ocean Board of Ed will act as host as per the below. 8.7, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a transportation jointure agreement with Eatontown Board of Ed. The Township of Ocean Board of Ed will act as host as per the below. 8.8, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a transportation jointure agreement with West Long Branch Board of Education. The Township of Ocean Board of Ed will act as host as per the below. 8.8, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a transportation jointure agreement with Long Branch Board of Education. The Township of Ocean Board of Ed will act as host as follows, as per the below. And 8.10, come on. 8.10, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a transportation jointure agreement with Shore Regional Board of Education. The Township of Ocean Board of Ed will act as host as follows. 8.11, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss transportation jointure agreements with Interlaken, Lock Arbor, and Allenhurst Boards of Education. The Township of Ocean Board of Education will act as host as follows, as per the below. And last, 8.12, Board of Education and Administration will discuss writing off outstanding checks for food services. Total write-on is $138.19. May I have a second on 8.1 and 8.2?
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't get who that was.
Alex or Denise, take your pick.
Take your pick. Okay.
Amy. Oh,
Wasn't me.
so we can vote on those and then discuss.
Yeah,
the ones?
sure.
Okay.
Was there any questions on 8.1 or 8.2?
Yes, I have a question on 8.1. So one of the proposals is for $753,000 for buses. Are we still in that lease program?
We are still in the lease program, but if I'm able to get the cash for the buses, I want to buy them.
You want to buy them?
Mhm.
You think that's a better deal than?
It wouldn't cost us anything because we'd get stabilization aid for it.
Okay. And the other was for the 3 elementary SACs for $100,000 after the grant. So we hire them. If the grant is not renewed next year.
This is for,
No,
I
it's
think
for-
a
it's for-
professional
it's for
service.
Professional, for contracted service.
Contracted
For the
service.
elementary.
Correct,
Okay,
Remember,
so
we
not
lost the
from,
human services. We're still trying
through
to
human
come
services.
up with
correct.
another alternative. But we thought that, putting this in the grant would be a good way to help pay for it.
To get additional,
Mhm.
sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
There is one point that I'd like to make up or make on the grant. So the last component, Mary Ann, if you could open up the justification for the one-time purchases. I just want to make sure the board's aware of this. One of the components is going to be for the intermediate school. We have 5 classrooms that right now, the univents do not work at all. They have no air conditioning. And the red gym, the smaller gym, does not have any type of air conditioning either. This is a space that we are currently getting $250,000 a year in revenue, and it's not fulfilling the obligation of what our lease agreement is with that individual organization, Camp David. So this $931,000 that I'm asking the state for, we would have to put up capital reserve for the amount that they do not pay. But I do think it's the right thing to do. We would need to continue to replace the univents that are still need to be updated in the intermediate school. They're one of the last ones. They're all 20 years and older. So this would be just a component of it. We would still have the rest of the 5th grade wing that we would need to upgrade. Okay, but if we get the money from the state, they're willing to give us 40% of that amount, and the rest of it would have to come out of the capital reserve. We'd need to do a resolution for that.
Right, just a final point on this we are applying for this.
Correct.
We don't know really.
We don't know if we're gonna get it.
And we don't
No,
know, right, we don't know the mechanics, we don't know the formulaic things,
Right.
we're not familiar.
That is
with all
correct.
stuff, right.
They could
So just-
decide to approve some
some
of
of
it.
it.
Some of it, not all of it.
Right, I just
Correct.
want to make sure we all have the right
Right.
expectation.
Yep.
It wasn't like, here we go, we get it.
No,
And
And even if we get it-
And we don't think it's a half-court shot.
no.
For
And
everything.
even if we get it, for this particular one, we would have to put out money.
Yes,
to
understand,
match
right. I was just
the-
I was just talking about the overall.
One other
picture.
thing too is, we were kind of given the direction that,
Yeah.
a wish list isn't a bad thing.
Yes,
Right, so we
were told
you know,
Shark
we-
Tank.
We put some stuff in there.
yes, I know, I remember, yeah, it was
Yeah.
part of that, right, yeah.
So,
But are
Did
you
you-
also,
Hold on a second, did you have a question? You didn't see
No,
me. Oh, yeah,
No, thank you.
okay.
That was.
but are you also saying that if we, whether we get this money or not, stabilization aid, if we do not fix the AC, for example, in certain rooms and the gym,
Yeah.
that our summer $250,000 rental
Could
is
be at
going to
risk.
cancel the contract?
Could be at risk.
Okay,
the gym.
But in order
has
to-
Never had it.
Never had it.
Yeah,
That's the
gym is
problem.
not-
Never
I think
had
It's
it.
more the classrooms.
okay. And how many classrooms?
5.
Yeah.
So they have said this, like, if we don't have air conditioning, we may or may not renew this
We're not,
contract.
we're not living up to the obligation of what we signed the contract on. In all fairness, they're not, and this, if the stabilization aid doesn't come through, this is gonna be part of the facilities audit that's gonna come from our architects in terms of what needs to be replaced when.
This regardless of. what we
They're
have in
old, they're
summer,
20 years old.
Regardless of what we have in the
Right.
summer, we would replace it primarily. because
Correct.
of Our own students. who
Air
were- our own
quality,
students and staff
right.
who were there 10 months out of
Why,
the year.
why didn't we do this like years ago, though?
Because of the cost. I mean, this is all due to cost.
Mhm.
Yeah, other
And the ones
priorities,
That we just replaced,
correct,
well, that may be 20 years old. The ones we just replaced were 40 years. old.
right. They're the original units of TOIS.
So, I thought, when are we expecting to hear an answer on this? Do we know?
Stabilization.
Yeah.
Mid-October,
Yeah.
October, right.
correct.
Yeah, right.
So,
I
so
think it was
it's
a
due,
fast- it was a fast
it's due
turnaround.
this week,
Right, it's
correct,
fast turnaround.
correct.
And we didn't get it last year, right?
We did not.
We did not.
But we
did not-
applied,
did
or we
not-
didn't
No.
apply,
We didn't apply because we
because we
were,
didn't know about it, right, or something?
no, let me finish.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right, we didn't apply because based on the formulaic things that they gave us, we were not going to be eligible.
We didn't think we'd be
Right,
eligible, right?
We're not going to be eligible. Now, because of the increase in the funding for this,
Mhm.
and we're not necessarily sure about the formula, because the formula is also based on the number of people that apply.
Correct.
We're not sure what we're going to be able to garnish from this.
Correct.
So I think we were encouraged to apply and be generous in what we were looking for to see how that would go.
Yes.
Right. So I think it was more that we had no reason to believe we would get anything last year. But now we think that there's a chance for us to get something this year.
That's
Okay.
all.
And some of the feedback we got after last year was sort of after the fact was, why didn't you apply?
Right.
Yes, yeah.
And the answer was because last year was the first year for stabilization aid, but in previous years, they would do something called emergency aid for S2 districts. We did apply for that in the past and we were always rejected.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
helped us
And we
kind of
did-
gather the
and
mindset
we
that
did
we
bring that up
wouldn't.
with our legislators.
Yeah.
To talk to them about that. And we said-
That's why we didn't
Yeah,
apply.
That's
was
why
the
we
answer.
applied, right.
Correct.
Okay, so now we're
Vote.
going to vote
Correct.
for.
8.1 and 8.2.
8.2.
Yep. Ms. Beal,
Need to recuse for professional reasons, 8.1, yes to 8.2.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes,
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Pralamis.
Yes.
Ms. Telerico,
yes,
Ms. Tortorella,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein.
Yes,
Motion carries.
so now on 8.3.
John McCarthy raised his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, John, did you have something you wanted to say?
For 8.3, I was just getting that hand in.
Mhm.
Oh, well, so. right,
So
the
questions
comment-
for the
comment
rest.
I wanted to say was, so now is there any discussion for 8.3 to 8.12? And John, did you want to say something about?
I've already asked this before, Mrs. Truba, so I apologize. I think you gave me an answer, but I just want to confirm. are we required by law to put the buses up on Gov Deals, or are we able to solicit outside agencies?
No, what I do is if I think we use Hunterton ESC as well to sell buses that are viable. It's, if I cannot sell them for a price on Hunterton, then we put it to Gov Deals. So every year we do this resolution because we not only sell buses, but we sell IT equipment when it's past the useful life of what the district uses it for. So like a bus is 15 years. Now, if I have a bus that has 13 years left, I do not put it on Gov Deals because I'm trying to get the most money for it. But pretty much if it hits 15 years, we're basically getting scrap for the cost. And that's how the state agencies sell their assets.
So nothing is stopping us from contacting a scrap metal recycler directly and asking them to quote us for.
No. Nothing stops us from doing that. I mean, we try to get the best prices we can for the buses.
I would highly recommend that we go that route instead of Gov Deals. And I say that because I work in the industry and I know that Gov Deals is where you try to make a, not a steal, that's a bad term, but you try
Yeah,
to
I mean, like if I could,
maximize profit margin by, getting the lowest bid possible. And if you go directly to a scrap dealer, I'm aware that it would be someone aside from my company, that you can get the most bang for your buck that way.
if the bus is movable, we have done that in the past.
Okay, anybody else have any comments about any? Yes.
Payroll, 8.5. Do we have a contract now for
No.
payroll?
Now, what 8.5 is allowing me to do is typically for a professional service, you have to take the lowest bid. What this is allowing me to do is I'm going to the commissioner saying, for payroll services, I can't go for the lowest bid. I have to go for a competitive pricing model that allows me to say, I'm looking for somebody to be able to do the IROC reporting, which is pension based. I'm looking for somebody that's able to do some of our healthcare deduction processes. So all 8.5 is allowing me to do is to go out for a request for proposal and be able to, when I go out, use certain indicators to determine who I should bring in. I'm also trying to hire somebody internally. So I'm going both processes here. Like I'm trying to see if I could get somebody that could replace Phyllis that knows how to use System 3000. But right now, most of the people have retired out and a lot of big districts are starting to take payroll services out. So that's what 8.5 allows me to do.
Thank you.
I think Alex, you were next.
Just two quick questions. Without seeing the previous year's Head Start at Acelero, is that a pretty much boilerplate? It's like, there's no big changes from last year, right?
Well, it's based on the grant and the state tells you how much you have to fund the Head Start program by. The costs year over year were not materially different. It was like maybe 3% higher.
And then the auction items or the old tech equipment, did we ever get rid of like the 200 computers that were in the basement of
Yes,
Dow, or is
yes.
this part of it?
That we were selling through all of that now.
So after like 10 years, those
Correct.
200 computers.
Correct.
Even
And
they're
if we
fired,
didn't
they're
sell,
still-
if we didn't sell them, we've had to destroy them. So when
Sure.
we did the shredding program that we did a couple of months ago, we also had an IT tech.
Big machine.
It was a big machine that crunched everything to make sure that all the data was safe and we got rid of a lot of the laptops that we couldn't sell.
Great, thank you. It's awesome news.
Ms. McGovern,
I just have to say an 8.11. I have a fundamentally hard time voting for this. I probably will because I hate giving up money. But voting to take Lock Harbor students to Shore Regional and to their and West Long Branch school districts. When we went through a major lawsuit and now a Township of Ocean bus is going to be pulling into the West Long Branch and Shore to drop kids off doesn't feel good to me. And I just feel like I need to say that because I don't understand why Shore is not sending one of their buses.
Well, we made the bus stop right outside the mayor's house.
Perfect.
So
I mean,
we're
but
gonna double park there. by the way.
I just think that it's really a,
I want
You're
them
right.
to want to continue to need us.
I support that. It's ridiculous.
We should do it.
It's just a
we should
general
go,
question.
yeah, I mean,
We don't
I
hurt
don't go
kids.
against kids. I know, that's my other thing. I don't go against kids, but I think it's really, if I could say a word, I would say, but I think it's really ironic and crazy that Lock Harbor even requested this. Go
Mhm.
No,
ahead,
it's
sorry.
probably
I
short.
know, I agree with you. Just
It was
in-
short.
In general, these agreements and these transportation jointures out, outside of our town don't put a burden on our transportation runs in any
No,
way?
we don't take them if they do. So if you notice, some of them are zero, and where they're zero, the joiner district is also helping us too. So we might be taking their children someplace, but they're picking up our children. So we're working together and we don't charge each other. The ones where you're seeing joiner costs, that's revenue that our district is making, helping out other districts. And we sit down, after we plan out our routes, we determine, right? So I basically said to Maria, based on our transportation survey, they're looking for us to save or to come up with almost $200,000 worth of costs. This is helping us get 100,000.
Okay.
All
thank
right,
you.
but we wouldn't do it if we felt that we didn't have enough to cover our field trips, our sporting events, and our routes and our middays. So we did hire 4 drivers this year. 2 were replacements, but we did hire 4 permanent. So we went up 2 permanent drivers, and I just hired 3 additional subs. So, that's helping offset all the costs of what we're doing with transportation.
Okay, good. I think we can move on to,
I do have my hand up again, the second time.
oh, I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
It's okay. Just 2 things going in what Amy just said, because that thought has definitely crossed my mind. And, I also don't want to be petty here, but, that's a thing that I'm considering and looking at the sum there of the, what this would add. I think that the Lock Harbor district is like the least comparatively to the rest of the other districts. So I have 2 questions. One, as a new board member, can somebody help me understand why it would be a bad thing to say, no, we're not going to do that for Lock Harbor?
As John, as the person, I'm sorry, Jeff, can I speak? As the person that said
Sure,
that,
go ahead.
thank you. As the person that said that, I think my last comment was that I wouldn't do this to the kids, like that it was the town, but it's not the children that we're trying to bus to where they're going. So while it stings me that we're going to most likely do this, and I will vote for it, that it's because I don't believe in punishing children for
What-
other people's.
When did this decision, when did our decision go against us? What year was that? When was that?
It was, I mean,
4 years ago.
4 years
About 4
ago.
years, yeah,
But
so-
how would it affect their kids? Wouldn't they find some way to bus their kids? They would, right?
If you, it's only, I mean, really, if you only said, I'm not gonna bus the one Lock Harbor student because he's 4,000, the kid's just gonna walk over to Allenhurst and get bused. I mean, but I'm just saying, like, it's, you know.
I know, at some point, we have to,
Let it go.
let it go. Yeah, we have to let it go, yeah.
I
I
get
mean,
it.
a referee ruled a certain way, and we gotta let it go. So John, I think it's,
I did, because I think that it should
let
be
me
publicly
say,
stated.
let me just say something.
No, he just made a comment.
Oh, so John, I think, we lost a lot of funding,
Mhm.
right? And that was, it took a while for that decision to come through.
Mhm.
And I think we were surprised that we lost, right? And now there's,
We're making some of it
we're bad
back.
feelings, yeah, right. So
By
that's the,
21-14, we will.
that's probably everything, but that's behind it. So,
And I understand that, but so then that does beg the question, what is the downside would be, that we wouldn't be busing a student into their school and then another district would take care of it? Is that where the downside would be?
they can make the case that they can make the case that we are.
Retaliating.
Yeah, they can make, I
I don't
don't
know.
know what the case would, I don't know what the case would be, but it's probably,
We don't have to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
If
would
we
be
can-
wrong if we did, if we did not.
It helps offset a
Oh,
cost of the
same-
driver.
excuse
It
me,
would be
Denise?
wrong if we
It
did not
would be a
do it,
little
because
wrong.
I
again,
agree.
we are affecting.
I agree.
You said it does help offset the cost of a driver? That's what you just said?
It does. It offsets the cost of a driver.
Yeah.
More than offsets.
I don't have any other questions.
It was
Thank you.
Shore Regional that asked us to do this.
Not Lock Harbor.
It was not Lock Harbor. So
Oh.
Shore Regional used to be the one that did this. They do not have enough busing people. They came to us. We have a very long-standing, good relationship with Shore Regional. And also Deal called.
Interesting.
So Pia is the business administrator as well, and we do a lot of work for Deal as well. So we
Well,
line
little different
fields, we
perspective.
do, so this is all part of us all trying to do the right thing for each other.
And so saying no to Lock Harbor would put Interlaken and Allenhurst at risk as well, right? You couldn't say no to one without the other two.
Correct.
You could,
Fun
but
run.
you know, it's not, it's,
Fun run.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, where are we?
Instruction, education, and student activity.
Yes, we're in instruction, education, and student activity number 9. Ms. Gilmer.
Number 9.
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
7 items, but I have a question. There were 8 items yesterday. Was one removed?
Yes,
Aha,
yes,
I
Ms.
knew it was.
Weldon removed one, correct?
yeah.
Based on a conversation with you?
Because yesterday, when I went through the agenda.
Yeah, there's seven now,
I don't
then
remember which one that was.
it was based on her county meeting. She said she talked to you and she said she didn't feel it. She wanted to look at it further. I don't remember which one it was.
Long
either,
weekend.
Jen.
Me either. I couldn't remember either, and I took notes.
Yeah,
All right,
no, it's-
thank you. All right.
Sorry.
5.1, move to approve the affiliation agreement between Kane University Holocaust and Genocide Studies Program and the Ocean Township School District in accordance with the attached copy. The agreement will cover a period of 2 years, September 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2024. And it was the Holocaust Gen classes that did attend the cattle car
Yeah.
exhibit. So that was.
That was one of, yeah, we had many classes. That was one.
But that was one of them.
Yeah.
That was excellent. 9.2, move to approve a cancellation to out-of-district public tuition for the 2022-2023 school year in accordance with the attached memorandum dated August 31st, 2022 at Hawkswood. 9.3, move to approve the request of college university students to fulfill the early field practice requirements in accordance with the attached memorandum dated September 8th, 2022. 9.4, move to approve the attached memorandum dated September 8th, 2022, staff professional development activities in accordance with District Policy 6471 and NJAC 6A:23A-7. The attendance at said activities is fiscally prudent and will promote the delivery of instruction and/or will further the efficient operation of the district. Reimbursement for travel and related expenses shall be according to the Department of the Treasury guidelines and NJOMB Circular 06-02 and A-87. 9.5, move to approve a revision to out-of-district private tuition for 2022-2023 school year in accordance with the attached memorandum dated September 7th, 2022 at Bay Shore Extraordinary Aid. 9.6, Board of Education and Administration will discuss the official release of the New Jersey Department of Ed school self-assessment for determining HIB grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act for the period of July 1st, 2021 through July 30th, 2022. Copy of the reports are attached as per State of New Jersey Department of Ed requirements. The final release is to be presented to the public, then posted to the district website. 9.7. Come on now. Board of Education and Administration will discuss the following overnight trip request for grades 9 through 12 choir and marching and jazz band at the high school, destination Florida. May I have a second on 9.1 through 9.5?
Second.
Okay, great. Any questions?
Do you want to, what have you want to do? 'Cause we
Oh,
have
do you want to
special-
talk about it?
Well, I'd like to talk about 9.6. But
Yes.
that's not a
Let's-
voting. So
Yeah, do you want to?
Let's do
I think we-
9.5,
I think we go to the voting ones first.
9.1 to 9.5, questions first.
So 9.1 to 9.5, there any things people want to ask? Alex?
For question, for 9.2, since we are canceling out an aid that cost us $40,000, right? And last meeting, it was like a $70,000 out of district student that also canceled and came back into district. So that's $100,000-ish. Was that $100,000 for just those 2 kids, for example?
Yeah.
Put into our budget? It was originally
Yes.
put into our budget.
Yes.
So when we're saying we're looking for money here and there, does this not, can you explain to the average person how this doesn't just like free up $100,000 in.
Because next
savings.
week, we're gonna have a request for an
Somebody-
aid and probably another request for an out of district.
Just to let you
placement.
know, we have 35 kids that we still have not enrolled. So we're doing assessments on them. We're doing all
Yeah.
of that.
But
right
we have
now.
not enrolled in out of district.
We haven't enrolled yet and we're bringing them in and we're doing assessments. So all throughout the year, you have children going in and
and
out of tuition. So, I'm always very careful not to touch the tuition
Not to
line
move it
until,
yet.
exactly.
Correct.
It's one of the last lines I go to.
No,
to
June
try to save
29th,
money.
about June
Exactly.
29th. you-
Exactly.
George's question.
Probably say.
35 students enrolling in the district? or
Yes,
35
in this
Does that all
district.
potentially need?
Some do and some don't, but in other words, that's how fluid
Yeah,
the movement of the population
and you
is.
would be
So I do
amazed
not touch-
how many
yeah.
people call us this week saying, oh,
I forgot.
school has started
Right.
and I have to enroll my child.
Right.
You would be amazed.
This is the busiest time of year for the registrar in the
You would be
district.
amazed.
Yeah, so she should be thanked.
Any other
She
questions
should be
around that?
thanked.
Can't tell if John has his hand up or not. John does not have his hand up.
Okay, so we go.
Okay, so I think we can vote on 9-1 through 9-5.
Ms. Beal?
9-1 recused for personal reasons, yes to the rest.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. McGovern?
Yes.
Ms. Paramus?
Yes.
Ms. Telerico?
Yes.
Mr. Tortorella?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes to all except 9.3. I'll recuse myself due to my affiliation with Monmouth University.
9.3?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Number 10. Oh, no, we're gonna have a
We're gonna
special.
discuss
All right,
now
everybody relax.
6.
Everybody relax.
School your jets, Weinstein.
What happens when you have an hour?
School your jets, school your jets.
9.6, did you want to talk about that?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, thank
go
you.
ahead.
So this is just, the self-assessments that we do every year. And we, every year we kind of go through these numbers, right? And everybody sees, 70s and 69s and they freak out and this is terrible.
This is the
But I just want to remind everyone what these numbers mean, okay? So the highest, this is, first of all, once again, it's a self-assessment. We give ourselves these grades, okay? And in each category, a 2 out of 3 means you're doing what you are supposed to be doing. A 2 out of a 3. If you give yourself a 3 in an area, you're doing beyond what you're supposed to be doing. So basically a 52, a score of a 52 means you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. Right? So sometimes I hear, like, oh, our grades are low. If we have a 69 or a 70, those are they're good grades self-assessment wise. And by the way, this doesn't really have to do with how many HIBs you see in a year or things like that. It's more about the procedures, the trainings you do, all those kinds of things. So we know we see a lot of HIB reports over the course of a year. So that's not what the grade's based on, right? The grade is based more on the procedures and how you go about doing things. So just want to remind everybody, and it's not a percentage. It's not like 70 out of 78. And what's that percentage,
I
right?
feel like every year we get the same.
I do, but every year I feel like I have to.
No,
So
it's good. It's good. I think
Yes.
every year we're gonna have the same question.
I think we are. Well,
These
we
numbers
can talk to-
last year,
next year, I won't worry about it.
Okay. No, I know. I think you should.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Ari, go ahead.
Gilman. So yes, while a 2 is a very good score, core element 3 in the high school, staff instruction and training programs, is the lowest core element of everything. It's 11 out of a possible 15. And it really seems to center on instruction on HIB prevention, on the members of the school safety climate team provided with PD, and school building leaders having received information on the prevention of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. I know that we give workshops and I know that there's PD available, but if we are assessing ourselves, and that is the lowest number out of all of the other core elements, I think we need to focus a little bit more then on staff instruction and training programs.
Any comment, Jim?
No,
Okay.
I just want to know who does it, who self-assesses. You say
it's,
we,
it's the team, this, each school's team does.
what
does-
team that?
They're the
the
school climate.
climates, okay.
What's the circle back method with the rest of the staff on this? Just to get to Irene's point. So you do all this, then you circle back and then do you wait for 10 people to raise their hand and say, hey, we need more training on this? Or do you kind of decide what the next, or who decides what the?
Really, it's
what the
driven, it's
strat-
driven by each school's team. Each school climate safety team. Really.
About what their requests are going forward?
Yeah, they take a look at what the professional development requirements are, what the needs are, you know, that's for this purpose.
Okay, so Irene's question, not to be an interpreter here, but to Irene's question, you would expect that if this team really thought that training was really a problem, then they would be asking for professional services related to that.
Not necessarily. I mean, Irene's is more of a comment, not a question, so that's why I really.
Well, she was-
But-
It was a comment that
yeah.
it was the lowest,
Yeah.
Yeah.
lowest
right.
area.
But,
But suicide prevention, I mean, they gave that a.
well,
two.
remember that, well, because I think we do what, you know, we do what's required, right? You know, do we, you know, that, based on their assessment, they felt that that's what, you know, that's what they do. I mean, part of the issue with any training is time. I mean, there is so much training that goes on. And at some point, you kind of, you know, I mean, I think sometimes you can speak with our staff and I think they'll tell you, you know, that sometimes there's so much training that's required and so much training that we do that at some point it almost becomes like noise. And these are really important topics and not to downplay them in any way, but it does. You can just kind of be PD'd out. And, you know, and there's only so many days that we have to do these things. So, you know, it's PD in general is always a challenge every year, you know, and there's no doubt we could do more training in this. Part of the problem is time. I mean, I will tell you, we could do more training in a lot of areas, right? It's just, it's,
Okay.
I mean, you know, there's only so much time to do some of this stuff.
Do you want to have a discussion more about the overnight trip or is it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
That's what I was trying to. Okay.
I
Does
just,
anybody
They go
have any
ahead.
other questions around any of these two?
yeah, the overnight trip, well, I know they're fundraising, but if somebody can't afford it, so what steps do we do for some of those students?
Well, I
would
mean-
assume there's free and reduced lunch kids on the band,
Yeah.
that might not be able to afford.
I'd have to see exactly what we do, because I mean, obviously, if you're talking about a trip that is curricular in nature, right? Then we do that. We never deny any student. This is extracurricular, right? So that plays into it. And it's also, you know, expensive. I mean, it's over $1,000 something bucks, right?
$1,800.
So for us to be able to say, well, if you're this, you go for free is probably not realistic, right? So I can double check with Mr. Titmus to see how we address that. You know, obviously, we never want a person not to go because of finances, but these are extracurricular, you know, it's an extracurricular trip, and as such, you know, I can't swear that everybody is, there may be kids who are not free and reduced lunch who aren't going to go on
Sure.
this trip. So, you know, but I'll double check
Yeah,
with
can we
them.
find out?
I know they try to do as much fundraising as
Yeah.
possible to lower the cost.
I was just gonna say, I know this, usually this trip is spring break, so they do have a lot of the year, including their, I
Yeah.
believe
Yeah,
their
they go
spring
over spring
musical,
break usually.
that is also defrays the cost as well.
Yeah, I think it's like couple $100 every kid gets.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean, it's
Yeah,
airfare.
it's
it's-
been
Yeah.
on
that's still a
hiatus for a couple of years.
It
right?
has been on hiatus.
We went last year. I believe we went last
No.
year.
Oh, I don't remember that, no.
Yeah, Sandy posted her
Yeah, we went last year.
parade
Yeah.
live, I think.
Pretty sure we went.
Yeah.
It's all the blur the last couple of years, but I'm pretty sure we went.
Okay, any other questions? Let me see if John has his hand up.
No,
No, John, okay.
he's in my corner. I can see his look.
I keep going back and forth to the Assuming that's it. Okay, so we good with those topics?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to personnel, Ms. Parlano.
Sure. Motion to move items 10.1 through 10.21. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who said second? I'm sorry. Thank you.
You both raised your hand,
Natalie was
and you did it at the same time.
Did we?
Yes, it was very cool. It
And I didn't even.
We practiced.
was like you owe me a Coke kind of thing. Any
No,
questions?
no.
Oh, we can't. It's-
Personnel.
So we could just vote.
I do have a point of inquiry.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Yeah,
Am I required to recuse myself from all of this because I was unable to attend executive session?
no.
You read it. If you
If you
read
read
it.
it,
If you read it, you
Yeah.
can, if you read them, you can vote on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
You can even just say you read them and vote on it.
Well, we're assuming the two.
That would be unethical.
Assume the two.
Ms. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes.
Wait, which ones are we doing here?
All
10-1 to
21.
10-21.
Personnel.
Personnel.
Not 22. That's just a discussion item.
I didn't realize that 10-12, the increase of substitutes was, have we discussed that at the last meeting?
Well, it was up.
Well, we
Okay,
had
that executive
upstairs.
session.
Upstairs.
Talking about it for years. I don't remember us discussing raising substitute pay.
It's
So
just, it's right, well,
that's great.
it's just necessity at this point.
That's great. Okay. All right. Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. McGovern,
I recuse from 10.14 as it relates to my daughter. Yes to everything else.
thank you very much. Ms. Palamas?
Yes.
Ms. Telerico?
Yes.
Ms. Tortorella?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we want to have a discussion around 1022. Jim?
That upstairs.
We already did
We
that.
did that
I feel like
upstairs.
we
We already did that,
did.
okay.
You know, I'll just ask, is there still a sense we want to have chief next week and?
Well,
what I- what I-
1022 is not related to, 1022 is not related to the discussion.
Well, I think there was,
It could be,
I
yeah.
think there was a desire to just talk to the chief a little bit about possible trainings and things like that.
Let me see what this thing. Right.
You know, what I was thinking of doing is, you know, if there was a sense tonight, based on conversations, I could put it on again for discussion under a work meeting and then on potentially for
Regular
approval.
approval.
Yeah.
Regular meeting.
I get, let me ask you this, a different question. Is there something, are we interested in having the chief talk about this particular recommendation that the administration has been making? Do we want more from the chief to help us come to a decision? Or do we feel like we have enough to make the decision? I'm not
I do.
gonna move for a vote, so I'm not gonna move for whatever people.
I do.
Feel like it.
I mean, I can email him if I'm the only one who wants to ask him a question or two or three. But I'd like to ask some questions.
Anybody have any comment about what I just said, or
I don't have any need to talk to the chief
you don't have any to talk to?
about whether and
About
my
whether or not-
decision.
About whether
I
or
know.
not you want to have our security people be able to carry in the schools, right? When called upon.
I would like to ask him what he thinks. We asked Mike what he thought of the plan. And he gave us a very truthful response. I'd like to ask the chief if he thinks that we are adequately staffed with the class 3 and class 2, even though there's only one officer, or if he thinks that it would be a good idea to have this safety net. I mean, it might just be one question, but maybe there are other questions. I'd like to get his assessment.
I don't think there's any harm in having it there.
Yeah.
I think Mike did a good job as far as my questions were concerned, but I probably would have a question for him.
Okay. Anybody else? They want to volunteer their thoughts? Or?
I'm raising my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
Okay.
You have to raise your hand a little higher, John. It's hard. to
Raise your
understand.
hand.
I did wave as well.
It's yellow.
I did wave as well, but
I
you
know,
know.
sorry. Okay. Good.
Dr. Spanglish, have you not already asked the chief if his opinion on this matter?
This plan would not have been brought to the board without his opinion.
And what was his opinion when you asked him?
The plan would not have been brought to the board without his opinion. He was fine with it.
So then I do have a comment, and first of all, I hope that having sat in these meetings before when one individual is virtual, so I am of the opinion that it sounds a little more tense. So that is not what I'm trying to come off with here. If it does come off that way, I apologize. I just don't see why we need any additional information or what the chief is going to give us. I think that we are at a point now where we've had the head of security sit down with us and give us his opinion. We're aware that this plan has been brought to the chief. It's being put forward in front of us by the administration as something to decide on. I just don't see a value in waiting for a meeting with the chief. We tabled this in the last meeting to have him here to discuss with us, as well as our head of security, and he was unable to attend. But I think that we have all the information that people have mentioned previously that we would be waiting for him for. And it's been brought to our attention today that as of tomorrow, we will see for the first time a situation where we would have potentially needed this were the police department not able to support us. I think that it's important. I see some people are mouthing things, so I can't really tell what's going on. But
There's no,
Yeah,
Sorry.
There's no vote.
there's no vote.
There's no.
right, and I could make a motion to vote today, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was saying.
So,
I can make a
and I'm
move.
not doing that, but I'm asking, I mean, I think that I would like the board to consider that we do vote on it today because the motion was tabled previously. And I just don't, I am not, I guess let me pose this in a better way. I am not seeing what more information we will gain from the chief being present at a board meeting that we don't already have. And if someone is aware of that, please bring it to my attention so that I can reconsider.
Yep, Natalie, yep.
So I was one of the skeptics. I'm in agreement tonight with Mr. McCarthy. I don't know what else we would gain. So I guess my question is then for Dr. Stankiewicz, hypothetically, if we voted tonight and we said that we're going to do this, what happens next? What has to be done on your end and on Mr. Pembleton's end to make it happen?
I wouldn't be inclined to, start this tomorrow, right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
I think we have this plan in place. I mean, I think what we would do then is, we would meet, sit down and really have, chief is back. So part of that is the hashing out the procedural piece, the communication piece, the notification piece, all that. I don't think that would take more than a couple of days. I would think by next week, we would probably be ready to if needed, once again, if needed,
Wow.
to be able to put it into effect. It'll take, a little bit of time, but I think we can get it up and going pretty quickly.
Yeah, and just my opinion on it. So like I was saying, I wasn't going to be the one to make a motion to move this because I wanted to hear what everybody said, but I was really more interested in hearing from Mike about his thoughts on it. I think there was enough discussion the other day about how responsible people were going to be with firearms and how that stuff was going to work, and so listening to Mike about it, I think kind of cleared up that. And again, Jim brought this to our attention as his recommended course of action, right? And Jim, just as a final point to that, you did talk to the teachers, you did talk to the association, you did revisit with the principals. We're not swaying this, didn't sway any of your opinion about this.
No, I mean, yes, had a conversation with Mr. Riley, any concern that he had, I think I addressed, and that was not an issue. And the principals, they are certain, the principals in our security team are most comfortable. If we are going to do this, this is the way they would want to go.
Yep. And I just,
And certainly Chief Sorrentino was supportive of this
Yep.
situation.
Denise?
Just Jim, if you could answer this, and he felt like Mike with the training, he agreed to training and you talked about training.
Yeah, I mean, once again, they work together all the time as it is, so. Once again, I think still has to be hashed, some of the specifics still have
course.
to be hashed out, but yeah, I mean, that's a collaborate. Remember, we have a memorandum of agreement, we have a collaboration. Our relationship with OTPD is outstanding. And they're, they've invested a lot into this program. I think, Chief has worked very hard to ensure that we have the 5 class 3s. But I think, I don't want to speak for him, but I do believe that he feels very confident that in the times that we would need to get to that level of our person being the one carrying, he has confidence in them.
All right.
I do believe that. And if I didn't believe that, I think it would certainly impact
He would have said
what
no
I
from the
would
start.
bring.
Yeah,
what I
said,
would
yeah,
bring.
He would have said
Yeah,
no from
way.
the start.
Yeah, no way, right. I think John had his hand up first.
Yeah, I move that we vote on this tonight.
A second.
Do we have further discussion before we
We got
vote?
further discussion on it.
I'm like, wait a minute. I have a question.
Well, this is actually, but he's
seconded? I'm
moving.
sorry, you did.
We,
Oh, Amy's
We
getting
moved
like.
to separate.
but he's doing a separate motion because 10.22, is that the motion that we're seconding? I mean,
Well, we're gonna say-
we're
we're gonna say we're gonna-
saying we're saying that,
Because the other thing
Approve the
is, I
stipend
do
and
have to
allow
change
it.
the job description, which I didn't put back on. for
Right.
discussion, 'cause
Well, we
I
can-
really didn't think we voted on this.
we can move that as well, can't we?
We could.
Because it was already seen.
It was
already
seen, yeah.
It's just-
John, do
it
you want to
just
move that
adds-
as well?
What's
Yes.
what you mean by
I mean,
job
we could
discussion?
change the job description. next
Just
week.
you're moving the job
You could also
description?
change the job description next week.
We could. We could do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
you want to do that? Okay.
Yeah, it's probably just.
But we can have more discussion on it before we have the
Yeah.
vote, so. Alex, yeah.
My main question is, I'm not opposed to police officers being in schools and, firearms being in schools. My problem or my concern is more that I really think it needs to be the police officers. So I don't think answers or questions have been answered about getting overtime from the PD. So that's one of the questions I want to ask the chief. I don't think that has been sufficiently posed to him and his staff. So, and I think there were like 2 other questions. Remember while we were talking, we're like, oh, that's something to ask the chief. And I forget what they are. I could look it up if we wanted, but
I mean, I can share if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
I can, I mean, after the last meeting, I had a very in-depth conversation with Chief about the overtime. That was, we talked about that. And, his feeling was that, there were a couple things. I mean, one, it's certainly a higher cost. There's no doubt about it.
but you said it could be 7 days a year.
Yeah, I mean, right, we're not talking about a ton, but it is a higher cost. 2, if you're talking, there's not necessarily a guarantee that someone would pick up the job. I mean, that's another concern. If somebody were to call out last minute, 6 o'clock in the morning, the turnaround on being able to put it out on however they do it, the app, whatever it is.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, well, they could get it out. You're at the mercy of someone accepting it, right? So our people are going to be here. We know it. It's just a question of whether they have to bring their firearm that day or not. So, that was another, it's not insurmountable, it's whatever, but it's a consideration. So, I mean, I definitely got the sense that Chief was very comfortable with this plan. And maybe for a lot of reasons, that have nothing to do with us, maybe just for his own internal piece of it, maybe it's just kind of nice for him, but I mean, I definitely discussed the overtime topic with him. And for me, the issue there is, financially, we're already working in a deficit on this program. So to create any more when it's not necessary. I do have great faith in our people. You know, that's the main reason why I don't think that's the way we should go.
Okay. Any more comment about this topic before we bring it to a vote? Yep.
The only thing I want to say is that we've talked about this for over a month now. And it's been out there in the world that we've been talking about this. And the fact that we didn't have one public comment come in here tonight against this, when we had our head of security here, also makes me feel that the public is not so against this. Like, you know, we have things in our head of what it may be or what could happen, but that's the only, like, I just think that there's not, when we had class threes, we had people on, when we were having that discussion years ago, we had people on both sides saying yes and no. We did have a
That was
couple
at the
people
paper
here.
though and stuff. Like, I don't think people know about this.
It's
Yeah,
been on
there were
Facebook. I
25
mean, it's been
people on.
everywhere and people have known about it. I mean, I haven't gotten one phone call other than to say, yeah, like, you know, this is,
Yes. Well, let me
you know,
just- let me just-
and I'm
let
not
me
saying
just-
that
let
I'm
me
the
just,
be all end all. My point
yeah.
is that we didn't have any public comment on it. Mike Riley's on here tonight, Brian Walgren's on here tonight. We have people that once, you know, he spoke before public comment. If there were people that were against it, in my opinion, I believe they could have spoken up earlier.
Yeah, and just to my own,
And still
right,
can,
and just as my
after you vote.
own, just my own narrative about it, I think people that I know have been talking to me and have no issue with it. I think a lot of people listened to what we said the other day and was happy that we took a timeout.
Yeah.
But beyond the timeout, I don't see what the additional information we're going to get that's much different here. Especially, I mean, because at some level, we do have to try. I know that Jim made the recommendation, and I think when Jim made the recommendation, he's making it with the confidence that the chief of police said this was a good idea, right? And
Yeah, I
and
would- I
anybody
would not-
would
I would not
recommend it.
write it.
So I mean, you know, we tasked the administration to come up with the best plan. This is the best plan they come up with. We took a timeout, and
So let's vote.
now I think we should vote. But anybody, before I do that, though, I do want to make sure people have. If you want to make a comment.
Just a final comment. There were people that expressed reservations about the whole idea of arming our security people. I have great reservations about it. I would rather see the resources put toward identifying students that need our mental health support. I think that would be more effective. Closer screening, more support services for mental health. And I'm still not comfortable with armed security personnel in the elementary school.
Okay. Just on a final point to that, the idea of resources to identify mental health issues is not mutually exclusive, right? I mean, we still,
Yeah, I mean,
we're still doing that.
That's an ongoing.
That's an ongoing
It
thing.
is
right?
ongoing.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, but we could put more toward it.
When you, Dr. Stefanowitz, when you say you talked to the TEA, the union, and you said we worked through some of his issues, were they the issues that he raised 2 weeks ago, basically saying they knew none of this because nobody asked them? So.
Well, it's not true that they didn't know it. They were on the discussion when Mr. McCarthy asked for the motion for us to develop a plan. They were on, so they heard that. You know, so it was not unknown. So, you know, we talked about it. Mr. Riley discussed it with, you know, his executive team. What they came back to me with was some thoughts about this and then some other security thoughts as well, which, you know, we kind of addressed some of that here with the questions. I really, in an open session, I would not be comfortable discussing what the main concern was. But I think I addressed the concern with Mr. Riley.
Thank you.
Okay, then any other comments or questions at this point in time? Before we take a vote.
So just let me so it's moved to approve to vote on approving the stipend.
Yes,
Which is allowing the security when needed to carry a firearm.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to make sure
At
I'm
the direction,
grabbing.
at the direction of the
Correct, and I
superintendent.
just want to make sure that I'm grabbing it
So
correct.
it's 2 votes or 1?
It's one vote.
Okay.
So it's approving
You're
the
approving the
stipend, and by
Right,
approving the
approving the stipend.
stipend, you're allowing our security on the direction of Dr. Stefankowitz to carry a firearm.
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
all right, so I have, the motion was Mr. McCarthy, the second was.
Sorry, I just need to clarify for the record that is not all security personnel, but just the 8
The one,
security.
it was
Yeah,
like the
people on the
6,
list.
what was
Those
the, the listed
It's the
ones?
ones that are on the stipend.
Correct,
Just want to clarify that for the record. Thank you.
correct. It's what the resolution.
Yes,
says.
correct. right.
Okay. Okay, so first and second I have, so now I'm gonna take the roll call. Ms. Beal,
No.
Ms. Gilman,
No,
Ms. Hayes,
No,
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Prolanis.
Yes.
Ms. Telerico.
Yes.
Ms. Tortorella,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein.
Yes,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion carries.
okay, public relations, Grace Ann.
that would be
Oh,
me.
no, sorry,
That would be me.
Alex.
Move to
about
approve, which one is this? 11.1, move to approve in accordance with District Policy 6471. The board members attend the NJSBA virtual workshops October 24th to the 26th, as per the link below. The group rate is $2,100 for the board and administration. Up to 25 people, the following board members may attend. Am I supposed to read them?
Yeah, no, so.
No, you go right to
So it's
the.
action.
You could read them all and then we'll just.
Oh,
You
yeah.
go-
Here I am, like just waiting.
Just go home.
Do-do-do. 11.2, Board of Education and Admin will discuss the 2022-23 sponsorship program participants in accordance with Board Policy 9720 as follows. This program will raise approximately $14,500 gross proceeds for the 2022-23 school year. And there's a chart in front of your screen of our advertising rates. 11.3, Board of Education and Administration will discuss the Board of Ed goals and objectives for the 22-23 school year.
Okay,
Do I have a motion on 11.1?
Great. Can we get a second?
Second.
Any
Do we
questions
have, do we
before
have to, do we have to abstain for ourselves or how does this work?
When you vote on that one. I think you have to-
Can we just all in favor?
Can we just,
Oh, let's put it-
go in favor aye?
Can we do all in favor
We
with
could.
abstaining on themselves?
Yes, all in favor aye, abstaining on ourselves, okay?
Aye.
Aye, except for myself.
And
Is everyone
all in
myself?
favor of everybody else going to school boards?
Yeah,
Yes.
aye, myself,
Motion
okay.
passed.
Now, the discussion of the sponsorship program, anybody have any things that they'd like to talk about regarding that?
like to thank them.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. I like to see, there's more than.
Yeah, especially, if I
Sure,
may,
go ahead.
especially since a couple years ago, if not last year,
It's
we hardly
great.
had anybody. So this is really great.
Yeah,
that They picked up again.
Italian American Club.
This is on the buses?
But, well, nobody actually paid for busing advertising. So they just gave us a sponsorship. You will see it in all the pamphlets, anything that we
Yeah, like the
have,
playbill.
you know,
Yeah, it's
but
great.
nobody pays for
Put it in the
separate
calendar.
busing.
okay.
I want a
Hey,
sign, I walk
is
to
there
school with a
Any
sign.
any more about 11.2?
You stand at the corner with one of those.
So on 11.3.
And it's smart now.
On 11.3, the board goals are there for the last couple of years. I was actually thinking about, so I've been on the board since 2018. And I think we actually talked about this at one point, why the board goals are a calendar year when our school goals, when our school runs in the school year, right? And so one is I'd like for everybody to kind of look at these goals because I want to go through the goal setting process over the next few weeks. But my opinion is that we should, I'm going to talk to Marianne Friedman about this. But I think we should make our goals congruent with the school year and get our head around that. And I think it probably makes a lot more sense. So if we could discuss that, but I think what I was hoping when I was looking at the calendar, I think I was looking at something like maybe we could have these in place by October 20th, give ourselves a couple of sessions to be able to iron this out and then put these together for the 2022, 2023 school year. And then getting into May, start setting up what it would be for the 2023-24 school year. So I think we feel, I felt like this all the over years that we were just a little off and it didn't make a lot of sense. So I just want to know what everybody thinks about that. And
Good plan.
I think it's a good idea.
Good idea.
good idea. Does John have his hand up? No?
He thinks it's a good idea too. Yes, 2 thumbs up. He gave you 2 thumbs up.
So, I'd like for us to, I also thought that we should come up maybe with a process on how to do this. And I think we want to make sure we have enough time to be able to articulate what we want to accomplish here. So I actually think what I'm going to do is maybe put maybe a structure in place on maybe goals that we want to have related. And these are goals, by the way, the other part is when we're looking at reading the goals of the board should be the goals that we can help accomplish and support. That it shouldn't be necessarily reliant on Jim to have to do, but it should be the ones that we can support. And so some of the goals are not necessarily framed up that way. And so I think we want to look at the ones that we have responsibility for as a group to support. So like, for example, if we thought that, the building was the thing that we would say we're going to come up with a resolution on what to do with our land, right? And figure out how to like really not lock that in, right? So I just think we should keep it more smart, meaning, timely and actionable that we can control and not rely on somebody else. Yep.
When was the last time we received an update regarding the status or the progress of the goals?
I was talking with Jim about that the other day. It was, I believe, at the April meeting, we had a status of that. And I think I was talking with Jim about going through that again and coming up with a date to do that.
Can you do that before whatever you're proposing? Like, so we get a status
I
update on
think we
that?
probably do that. I don't think it would take long to do that. I mean, Jim and I went through how we were doing against these goals anyway. And then, Jim pointed out that some of the goals are really more for us to do, not for
They're
him to-
board
the
goals.
board goals.
See, there's district goals.
Yeah,
And then there's.
and then
board goals.
also the other part is that since we now have the 5-year plan in place, right, we can figure out how to attach ourselves to that 5-year plan.
Yeah, the goals should kind of correlate with that.
To some extent, yeah, what could be accomplished, right? And what's important to us. And now that we're also back in what we hope will stay a normal year, right? We can, we won't have the cloud of that on top of us. So if it's okay, I'm gonna maybe send out an email of some dates to get everybody kind of focused in on that and maybe a little bit of a structure on how to go about that. Okay? Is that cool? Is John raising his hand?
He's good.
He is not.
Okay.
Why did?
Thanks. Because because I don't have his thing up.
He can't see.
John will tell you when he's.
Okay, good. All right, I think we can go to old business. There is an old business topic I just want to bring up quickly, or I don't know, but quickly. But Gracie, back, and you weren't here last meeting, right? I wanted to bring it up then. But we had the conversation with Mary Ann Friedman about, our role as a board. And then you were asking for, I believe, the equity coach to come in and present to us, right? Which to have a staff member come in and kind of present is, usually not in our purview, right? Just to find out what they're doing, right? We had Mike here today to kind of specifically help us with the decision, but we usually don't bring in a teacher or somebody to kind of say what's going on.
But she's not a teacher.
Well, any
She's
faculty
still-
member, any staff member, we don't usually bring people in. And also the other part
She's
I'm a
not
little curious about is she's usually part of the wellness, like on those wellness reports, I would assume we're getting some kind of feedback on how that's progressing with her there. So I guess I'm kind of curious, what are we trying to accomplish by?
Hey,
by
we
bringing
can
her in?
ask her in the wellness committee next month.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Cool. I just didn't want to get us into the spot where we felt like we were gonna be ushering people in.
Wait, ask her what to,
I think she meant more, or correct me if I'm wrong, is it more like
More
just an
about process.
overview of our SE like initiative. It's like a district-wide revamping of all things SEL and equity that two amazing people have been in charge of, that we've just been asking for like an update. It's not like, what are you doing in your AP history class next month? That's not what we're asking for. So I think it's it's apples and oranges saying we're dragging in a teacher to give us an update on what they do. It's like a whole approach that we kind of revolutionized in this district.
Has anybody asked her?
I don't,
Because she's usually on these meetings anyway.
I don't think it's that shocking to want to know.
You can jump in.
How are we doing?
So the appropriate way to do this would be through the administration, right? And it's typically the administration who would invite individuals to come to the board to be able to speak about a particular issue or item that may be going on, not typically day-to-day operation, but in these particular, with these particular individuals, equity coach, now I'm hearing SEL coach, these individuals are part of the Wellness and Equity Committee. They give reports every meeting on what they do and the things that they've been working on. There are 2 board members that sit on that committee that bring that information back to the board and share that information with the board. So I think that is the appropriate avenue for which, you know, you can get information about what these folks are working on. And if there's anything that of you know, particular interest beyond their daily work, special project or something they're working on. Because remember, we have a lot of coaches. We have tech coaches, we have instructional coaches, we have many different kinds of coaches. So, you know, they're doing their jobs every day. And if there's something that we feel that in particular that we want them to come in and talk about, you know, we can certainly have that conversation. But, you know, just as a, you know, what you're working on kind of thing, I think we get those updates in the Wellness and Equity Committee, and then that's ultimately communicated here at the board level. So I think that addresses that.
I mean, is the, on the wellness committee is,
Myself and Grace Ann.
and are you guys in agreement with that, or you don't agree with?
I mean, I've been on the last, I mean, I was on all year. So, and since they've both been in place, they've given updates just as the SACs and the guidance department has given. They talked about them, you know, that basically they talked about how they, and I brought this back to the board, that they talked about doing an SEL curriculum that they didn't feel that they needed to buy, but they rather would.
I think we're getting into the weeds here a
Yeah,
little bit.
but you know,
But you felt.
yeah,
you-
but yeah, no, they give updates on what they're doing, and I have brought that back. I go through the minutes of what from the meeting and what has been discussed. I feel that personally, that they've given. I haven't had any questions about work being done or
Okay, and when's the next meeting?
specific.
Next month?
Next
Yeah, I
month,
think we're slated for
October.
Okay,
All right, we'll get that information. We'll bring it back.
okay, great, super. Anybody else for old business?
I just have one. Oh, sorry.
Sure, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Great.
Shawanda.
Discussed previously that each school was going to have diverse student representation, talk about the surveys and report through the wellness committee and then report to the board at the October 11th board meeting. Is that still on track?
I would like to do it on the 18th, if that's okay, because we typically have the administration present at the regular meeting. And they would, instead of asking them to come to another meeting just a week earlier, I'd like to have them present that on the 18th of October.
So move it from October 11th to October 18th.
Correct.
Yeah, that was great. John,
I just wanted to say, now that we're, we voted on 10.22, that last item of security stipend. One of the things that was brought up multiple times by board members who were not super comfortable with this was other things that they think that we should focus on aside from like mental wellness. And so I just hope that as a board, we can all start to work towards focusing on those things as well, because I don't think this is enough in bringing, this culture of security to our schools that we need to. And I think that it's multifaceted, And I think there's a lot of other things that we as a board need to consider and how we can support the administration. And I hope that those of you who do not agree with this opinion, know that I'm looking to support everyone and to struggle and have disagreement on what we can do in other areas as well, so that we can do the best that we can to make sure these schools are as safe as possible. And I just wanted to make that comment.
Alex, I thought you had your hand up, right?
Yeah, I don't know if John was done.
Yep.
Okay. Speaking of timelines, I guess. So where do we stand on the Citizens Action Committee? I forgot what we were calling
Yeah,
it.
citizen, right.
Wasn't that in our goals? So don't we have?
Yes, I was actually gonna bring that up in our next meeting to kind of
Okay. So
talk
we-
about what we want to do with that.
Okay. And then, so, and I also think at a recent meeting, we're still on hold, right? That we asked, like, what are the types of events that we wanted to either be invited to or, get notice of? And weren't we supposed to work on a list of, like, because I do think the, like, it was not so last minute, it was an amazing, the Holocaust thing. I wish we had gotten more heads up notice, because I would have loved to spend a lot of time there. Like, can we have a calendar that we can put into effect of, like, we know these things are gonna happen, and these are what school board members are gonna be invited to, asked to come? We talked about that like a couple of meetings.
We did? Okay.
Yeah, and you said, like, everyone send me a list of what you want to be invited to.
Oh.
My answer was basically all, but I mean, so I didn't send you anything.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Nobody
So-
else remembers us doing that, asking for a list of, oh, okay.
I guess I didn't get anything from anybody. I didn't really. So,
Yeah, it's kind of, can I address that?
yeah,
It's-
well, just comment on that. I also like to know the things that are appropriate for us to be invited to. And I guess that would be more on your decision. on the things
That was, remember, the process used to be that it used to have to come through
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
There was a vote that no longer needed to happen. So I don't know that that's what happens anymore. But the
yeah.
reality is that, there are events that go on in the school all the time. And obviously, as board members, I know that you all are interested in what goes on in schools every day, but, your job is not really to be in the schools every day, right? It's to see the special things, the unique things, and when those things come up, I'll certainly make you aware of what they are. This event was one of those kind of things, very unique, very interesting, and I received some feedback that, didn't feel I had enough. I mean, you actually just said you didn't feel you had enough time. I got the specifics on Thursday. You got it Friday morning. I mean, that was the turnaround. And so, these things take a lot of time. First of all, remember, they're student presentations, right? They're first kids. So it takes a lot of time and working out the logistics to make sure that all gets worked out. And then when that gets worked out, when I get the information, I get it to you as soon as I possibly can. So, as things come up that I think are good things for you folks to see and be a part of, I'll let you know about them.
So just to be an advocate, for what she was asking for. I mean, you can't have anything much more predictable than a school calendar, right? I mean, everything's kind of planned out already to some extent, right?
Many events are already on the calendar.
Well, on the calendar. So I guess you could identify with us those events that you want us to be at there, or you.
Anything on the school calendar we put are typically public events that
Anybody can go.
you can go to.
Okay.
For the most part.
Yeah.
The only thing we have typically asked is if you're going to be in the building for a particular reason. That's why there was a
Yeah.
desire to have invitations come through the superintendent's office, because
Okay.
there was a lot of, things unknown going on.
So I think, Alex, I mean, this one thing, the cattle card that came up now, I guess in the last meeting, we said it was going to be on the 12th, right? We
Yeah,
just.
we said we gave the date.
The other day, we just didn't know,
2 weeks
I guess we just didn't know the logistics of the time in between. So I think that's what was kind of determined kind of like last minute. So
I didn't recall the 12th, so if I missed
Yeah,
that
the
part,
date was stated at the last one.
I thought you said we're gonna be getting this.
That's
And
what
it's
on the
great,
slide.
I'll let you know
Yeah.
what the date is.
So,
Okay.
well, I guess, Alex, just to your point, right? I guess the school calendar, you can look at that and,
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, something like the Cal car is not gonna be on the school
School
calendar.
calendar,
It comes
correct.
up, it, you know, it comes up and it's a, you know, it's a more unique, you
Right.
know, one-time type of situation. So, you know, as those come up, you know, sure, you know, I'd let you know as soon as we get the information and let you know about it.
is it, are things like, a senior night for things like, the athletic events and things like that, is that kind of noted anywhere? Like I was just,
Yeah, all those things are on the calendar.
those things are on calendar for senior
I
night?
mean,
No,
I realize the calendar,
athletics, you mean?
Athletic, yeah, I
You
don't
know-
think so, right?
Athletic, like it wouldn't,
a senior athletic night and in June?
the one in June you're talking about?
No, you know what?
Like if the football team, the date that they choose to have the senior night, is
Yes.
that on the calendar?
Yes,
No,
no, right,
because that's more, of- I mean,
yeah,
Yeah, it's
you
about
would
the
just be
team,
there
the
because
kind
you're
of-
at
yeah, I
the football,
understand, yeah. Right.
No, but the senior awards, like to Alex's point, the senior awards last year, I think,
And the
We-
math awards at the middle
Yeah.
school, I had no idea about.
yeah, like things like that.
Things
I
like
think,
that.
I feel like it's the end of the year things that because it's the end of the year, we always miss because we're all at the end of the year. But
That is on
Alex,
the
I've asked for
calendar.
this forever,
That
and it
math
just
awards
is like,
What?
What?
It's on the calendar.
Guess we could
I
discuss.
finally got them where they're not having the math awards during board meetings.
yeah.
Every year, you used to do it on a Tuesday night. We always. I finally got them to move
Alex,
them off of
I'm gonna
board.
look at the calendar.
No,
I'm
I'm
gonna-
into.
I'm gonna do it with you, and that way.
Aside from my real
and that
day
way-
job,
And
I'm gonna
also
do
figure
that
out how many
too,
people
and
want to
this.
come to certain things, and
Great.
make sure we don't have a quorum or anything like that.
Maybe we can work
All right, I'll
together.
do- I'll work with
You don't have
you.
to worry about
Thank you.
forums
Okay.
at these events unless you're gonna be talking about business.
Right, okay, but, okay.
We
I'll
can
work
always,
with
you guys can always make sure that there's somebody there.
Yeah.
We may not have a quorum, but you want to at least have one person, right? Like,
Okay,
All right, thank you.
any other old business? Yep.
I just have, back to school nights. Everybody should have gotten the calendar. I apologize, Shawanda and Alex, that I screwed up the OTES date for Wednesday versus Thursday. The way the calendar read on the website, when I was scrolling to get the dates after I asked Mrs. Amato if they were right, I said Thursday and Wednesday instead of Thursday. So that being said, Ms. Hayes can still go Wednesday night. Or Thursday night, Ms. Beal cannot. I can do it if nobody else
What
can
number, what
or
numbers
wants
are
to.
these? What numbers?
This is this week, this Thursday. I can go if nobody else can, but if somebody else would like the opportunity, I'm happy to have somebody else.
Thursday at what time?
Well, so it's a 7, but it's, double check that. It's 7, but it's also got the 2 sections. So you kind of stay for a little bit. And I was just gonna get with you tomorrow, maybe Jim, just to see if there's, because Jeff and I went last night to Wanamassa, which was great. But my job last night, and not because of any reason other than parents didn't know where they were going, was more of
Left and right.
second and third is left, everything else is to the right, So I know that and this was quick, that they're usually not this fast, I feel like, but if we can, I don't know if we can do a flyer or maybe a post, I don't know, where it says, even if it just has the rest of the board meetings for the year, and maybe I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, any other old business? Anybody new business?
I do.
Sure.
I think some of you know, I sit on the Monmouth County School Boards Association as the VP of legislation. And every year they do the 8th grade dialogue at one school where they bring as many schools that, can show up, and the folks that participated in the 8th grade dialogue. Normally there's about 100 people. They've been having it at Howell High School for a number of years. And they asked me if I would ask if we could have it at our high school. And they have a specific date. It is in March. It'll be open for all countywide 8th grade participants. I think it would be a great thing to kind of expose the county to our school, show off the high school. They just need things like a microphone, podium, maybe some light refreshments from some of our
Can you send me the
businesses.
information? If you send me the information, I'll talk with the high school and it's during a school day.
No, it's in the evening from 5:30 to 7.
Okay, that should be
Send
easy.
you all that info.
That should be easy. They would honestly, what they would have to do is really fill out
The form.
a facility use
Well,
form.
we have to give them light refreshments.
We
I'll
have, we
just-
have,
I'll
we
just call
have,
some
we have to give them
restaurant.
light refreshments. We can do that. Here's Jeff's sandwich.
I'll call some
I'm
town.
not sure if it'll stay till March.
We know a couple of restaurants.
Well, we got enough preservatives in it and let it go a little bit.
Do what, Alex? I'm sorry. I want
This is for the 8th grade dialogue, New
Yes.
Jersey School Board's
Be
video
great.
thing. So.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Sure, I'll get.
Anybody else have anything for new business?
March 2nd.
March 2nd.
Does anybody have anything for new business? No? Okay, I think we're at the public comment section. Anybody, John, I didn't see if John had his hand up. for new business. He doesn't.
He has
Okay.
that stuff.
Anybody, there's nobody here, so Ms. Conway, anybody on the line like to make a public comment?
No, President Weinstein, there are no commenters.
Okay, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, everybody have a good night. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mary
Thank
Ann.
you, everybody.